This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, Christopher Mitchell, and 212th Trooper. Long ago, when the pyramids were still young, Egyptian kings played a game of great and terrible power. But these shadow games erupted into a war which threatened to destroy the entire world until a brave and powerful pharaoh, along with a brother-in-arms, locked the magic away, imprisoning it within the mystical Millennium items. Now, 5,000 years later, the reincarnations of these heroes must come together again, for destiny has chosen them to defend the world from the return of the Shadow Games, just as the brave pharaoh and the loyal priest did 5,000 years ago. We open in an orphanage near the end of autumn. Due to the chill in the air, the kids are all inside, with one parent in particular seated on either side of a chessboard. As they have done countless times before, they are engaged in a battle of wits, with the elder, Seto, easily defeating his younger brother Mokuba. However, as these are the days before Seto lost his smile, he is magnanimous in victory, coaching his brother on how to do better next time. Mokuba, for his part, stares up in awe at the boy who he considers to be the smartest person in the whole wide world, just happy to be able to play with him, as he knows how much Seto loves games. Eagerly, Mokuba suggests they play another round, though before they can begin, one of the caregivers enters the room, instructing the kids to gather round, as they have a guest. The man who follows is short and squat, with grey hair bound by a bandana, a well-trimmed beard, and kind eyes. Smiling warmly, he introduces himself as Solomon, urging them not to make a fuss on his behalf, as he knows how important play is, even at his advanced age. He then lets out a belly laugh, which in turn makes Mokuba giggle, causing the old man to look over to the boy and his brother with a smile, his eyes alighting when he sees what they are doing. Waddling over, Solomon asks the boys if they enjoy playing chess, to which Seto respectfully replies that they play it every day since it's one of his favorite games. Nodding encouragingly, Solomon states that he also likes games a lot. In fact, he even runs a games store in Domino City, a claim which excites both Seto and Mokuba as they implore the man to tell them all about it. Chuckling fondly, Solomon begins to paint a mental picture of the store in the boy's mind. Though it's nothing grand, to the two of them it sounds amazing, with Seto in particular growing more and more enraptured with each word. When he is done with stories of the products they sell, Solomon next speaks of the people who live there with him, specifically his grandson Yugi, a boy about Seto's age, who also loves games and puzzles as much as him, having even spent the last 2 years working to solve an ancient Egyptian puzzle that Solomon found when on an archaeological expedition to Egypt. Truthfully, it is for Yugi's sake that Solomon is here today, as in spite of the boy's kind heart and tenacity, he is a solitary child, having no friends to call his own. This breaks the old man's heart, just as much as the thought of all the kids here growing up without a family, and so he hopes that perhaps he can do a little to alleviate both problems by providing a child with a loving home, while also introducing Yugi to a new friend who will free him from his isolation. It seems that destiny favors this idea, as in Seto, Solomon has found exactly what he is looking for, and so does not hesitate to offer him a place in his family. Though Seto relishes this idea, he remains firm on one point, that he will not go without Mokuba, vowing that no matter how amazing the old man's gaming store is, he will not abandon his little brother. In the past, this has been a deal breaker for other prospective parents, but in contrast, this devotion makes Solomon's smile wider as he declares the more the merrier, telling both boys to pack their bags since they'll be leaving for their new homes as soon as they're ready. What follows is a blur of packing and paperwork for Seto and Mokuba as Solomon formally adopts the two boys, then leads them from the place that has been their unwilling home for the last several years. All the way back to the game store, the old man chats amiably with his young charges, wanting to know what he can do to make this transition as easy on them as possible. For their part, the two newest members of the Moto family appreciate his kindness, with Seto as the more vocal of the pair saying they're just happy to be away from that orphanage, since it was always just the two of them against the world. Solemnly, Solomon vows that they will never be in that position again, then with a shuddering halt, brings the car to a stop outside their home. Having agreed to watch the store while his grandpa was away, Yugi is at the counter when the trio enter, and wasting no time, Solomon introduces the boys, encouraging Yugi to give Seto and Mokuba a tour. Nodding happily, Yugi tells the newcomers to follow him, leading them through the store and up into the apartment that they will now share. As they go, the three boys get to talking, with Seto and Yugi quickly realizing they have a lot in common from their age to their love of games. As a result, they immediately hit it off, and when even Mokuba starts warming to the boy with the tri-toned hair, Seto takes this as a sign that he can trust him. Feeling similarly warmly towards his new adoptive brothers, Yugi agrees to show them the Millennium Puzzle when Seto asks about it, pulling the box from under his bed. Due to its immense complexity and Yugi's young age, it is far from complete, but this only excites Seto, who promises Yugi that they'll solve it together, since he's sure if they put their heads together, this will be a piece of cake. This assessment is perhaps a touch overly optimistic, as even with 3 heads being better than 1, the Millennium Puzzle is still a hefty challenge, taking the trio far longer than any of them anticipated to complete. This does, however, come with its own benefits, as by spending every free afternoon, evening and weekend together working on this project, the boys develop a deep bond, truly becoming brothers in deed as much as name. For Seto, such an intense challenge to his intellect is a joy unlike anything he has ever known, as he is constantly tested to solve the individual riddles that make up the puzzle's construction. As a result, he quickly becomes the one leading the charge to complete it, as his pride will not allow him to be bested by some ancient artifact. As for Yugi, he has truthfully become less concerned with the completion of the puzzle itself, deriving more joy from the time spent with his brothers as they work together, while Mokuba is just happy to act as support for his big brothers, and getting to see them smile each time they overcome a little hurdle that brings them one step closer to their goal. However, the Millennium Puzzle is not the only pastime the brothers engage in, as now that they are a little older, Solomon has begun teaching them his favourite game of all, Duel Monsters. In doing this, he also shares stories of his younger days as an archaeologist, detailing the game's roots in ancient Egypt, as well as showing the boys the deck he has lovingly crafted over many years. Yugi and Mokuba both find these stories fascinating, though Seto's interested on something else entirely, quickly finding himself enamored by his grandpa's ultra-rare card, the Blue Eyes White Dragon. It is not the rarity or the power of this card that attracts the boy, but rather something about the dragon that seems to speak to his very soul. When Seto explains this feeling to his grandfather, Solomon fondly refers to it as the heart of the cards, a mystical connection between duelist and monster that can guide both to new heights if they are wise enough to listen to it. Resolutely, the 3 brothers all promise to listen to the heart of the cards, and this pleases Solomon, who at last begins their training in earnest. Before long, it quickly becomes clear that dueling is not Mokuba's forte, with him mostly watching, though both Yugi and Seto quickly prove themselves to be naturals at the game. The boys have immense fun dueling each other, though like with Mokuba and Seto's games of chess back at the orphanage, Seto almost unfailingly comes out as the victor, thanks to his genius-level intellect. However, also like those days, he finds joy in coaching Yugi to improve, having determined that his greatest failing is not a lack of skill, but a lack of faith in himself. Unfortunately, overcoming this is just as much of a slow process as finishing the puzzle, meaning that when a local dueling tournament is held in town, Seto is the only member of the Moto family to enter. Naturally, the boy wins with ease, earning him entry to a larger tournament, which ends in a similar victory. Several more tournament victories follow this, with Seto quickly earning himself a reputation as a wonder child in the dueling circuit, all the while his family cheer him on, immensely proud of all he has been able to achieve. Seto in turn is just as devoted to them, giving all the prize money he earns to his grandpa to help with the upkeep of the shop, while refusing to allow his new occupation as a tournament duelist to get in the way of his commitments to Yugi and Mokuba, still coaching the former in dueling, playing chess with the latter, and working on the puzzle with both. Finally, this endeavor comes to an end when Yugi and Seto are 14, as with shaking hands, the 3 brothers slot the faceplate bearing the Millennium symbol into the front of the puzzle, completing it at last. Though in doing so, the boys unwittingly unleash the shadow magic locked within, as all around them, malefic creatures resembling duel monsters take form. Protectively, Seto shoves the 2 smaller boys behind him, though this is a futile gesture, as the trio are already surrounded, and as a snarling Karibo lunges for the young brunette's throat, Seto braces to take it head on. However, just as the Millennium Puzzle bears darkness within itself, so does it carry an even stronger light, and with its power now returned, the spirit of the nameless pharaoh is able to manifest once more, briefly borrowing Yugi's body so that it may banish the shadow creatures back whence they came. In a voice that does not belong to the brother they have come to know and love, Seto and Mokuba hear Yugi command these monsters to leave, and in a flash of golden light, they do. As the light fades, so does Yugi seem to become himself again, though not fast enough for Seto to miss what he has become. He is a man very much like Yugi, but taller, more confident, and bearing the Millennium Puzzle's golden eye upon his forehead. Seto does not know what this is, or why it occurred, though there is one thing he knows with certainty. If whatever he just saw means to do harm to his brother Yugi, then no amount of magic powers will be able to shield it from the hurt he's gonna bring down upon it. In contrast, Yugi feels nothing but elation, like for the first time in his life, he was able to manifest his heart's true desire without fear, that being to protect the ones he loves. Now as the sensation of power fades, Yugi silently makes that wish again, to be able to keep his brothers happy, safe, and most importantly, together. After this, Yugi begins to wear the puzzle everywhere, seeing it as both a good luck charm and a reminder of his wish. Seto, still not trusting the Millennium Item's power, begins researching Egyptian history and mythology, both with his grandpa and on his own. Unfortunately, he's not able to get too far in this endeavor, as even with the extra time he now has that the puzzle is complete, he still has his familial obligations and rapidly growing role in the competitive dueling circuit to attend to, as well as something new that will occupy much of his time: high school. At the start of the new school year, Seto and Yugi both find themselves enrolled at Domino High, a seemingly brand new world with its own rules and occupants. Two such characters are a pair of local bullies named Joey Wheeler and Tristan Taylor, both of whom appear to find pleasure in picking on those smaller and weaker than them. And who fits this criteria better than Yugi? Unfortunately for Joey and Tristan, Yugi has something they weren't counting on, a brother who will go to any lengths to defend him. This includes, but is not limited to, beating the ever-loving snot out of a pair of wannabe tough guys, a feat he carries out without compunction or mercy, showing them what it feels like to have someone bigger pick on them. This is not to say Joey and Tristan don't put up a good fight, though even together they are not able to make Seto back down. It is only when several teachers arrive and pull the boys apart that they are forced to stop. Naturally, this earns all three a trip to the principal's office, and as they wait outside, each nursing their wounds, they find themselves with no other option but to talk to one another. At first, this is simply Joey yelling at Seto, demanding to know why he had to go and attack them like that. But with steely ferocity, the brunette answers that he and Tristan got themselves into this mess when they chose to go after his little brother. While Tristan reacts to this with scorn, Seto's answer gives Joey pause, as he considers the other boy in a whole new light. Finally, after what feels like forever, Joey admits that yeah, he gets it. If someone messed with his little sister, he'd go nuts too. This small concession is all it takes to open up a genuine dialogue between the trio, so that by the time the principal steps out of his office expecting to see a group of mutinous brats, he instead is met by the boys sharing a laugh, their bridges seemingly mended. Choosing to take this as a win, the principal only gives the trio a slap on the wrist, with a warning not to be caught fighting again. Though this is hardly a concern, as through their chat, Joey and Seto have come to realize how very much alike they are, both being protective big brothers who place a high value on loyalty and are not afraid of a little hard work in the pursuit of their goals. Thanks to this, the pair quickly become close friends, with this soon extending so that before long, Yugi, Seto, Joey and Tristan have become a tight-knit friend group. Shortly after this, another member enters their circle in the form of Taya Gardner, who after being saved by the spirit of the puzzle is welcomed with open arms. Now an inseparable team, the gang along with Solomon and Mokuba are regular fixtures at each of Seto's tournaments, cheering him on from the crowd and celebrating his successes afterwards. Such is their friendship that after Seto becomes the top-ranked duelist in Japan and is invited to the Intercontinental Championships, he pays two of his family and friends accompany him to New York for the tournament. Here he meets several world-class duelists, including the creator of the game, Maximilian Pegasus, and his American counterpart, a man by the name of Bandit Keith. He's also introduced to a whole new style of dueling, courtesy of a German company called Schroeder Corp, where the table upon which the players duel is contained within a glass box, allowing for small holographic versions of the monsters to be projected on top of the cards and do battle. Truthfully, it's a bit small for Seto's taste, as he would have made the monster holograms 10 feet tall so their clashes could be more visually appealing for the audience, but still he is impressed at this advancement in dueling technology. The early rounds of the tournament are a piece of cake for Seto, though he does his best to remain gracious in victory, even when he manages to outplay the European champion and creator of the duel box, Siegfried von Schroeder. Finally, at the end of the day, only 4 of the dozens of competitors remain as semi-finalists, with Seto being one of them. To ensure they remain sharp after a long day of dueling, the 4 competitors are given a few hours to prepare, with Seto and friends returning to their hotel to rest, before Solomon takes the kids out for dinner. Unfortunately, Seto's semi-final opponent Bandit Keith has far less recreational plans for his time off, sneaking into the Moto family's room and rifling around until he comes across his true objective, Seto's deck. With a malicious laugh, he begins tearing up his rival's cards, knowing that even if by some fluke the kid can piece them back together, those Schroeder Corp duel boxes won't be able to read them, meaning it's game over for Wonder Boy. While there are a couple of primo cards in here Keith would like to swipe for himself, it's not like he could use them, since he'd be found out at once, so it's better if they all get destroyed. By the time everyone returns to the hotel, Keith is long gone, with the only thing there to greet our heroes being a pile of shredded card. Everyone is horrified, though Seto's shock is offset somewhat by fury. He knows exactly who did this, and even if he can't prove it, he's gonna make Keith pay for what he did. The only question is how, since without a deck, he can't compete in the semis, meaning that scumbag will get a free ride to the finals. Seeing how much this upsets Seto, Yugi offers to give his brother his deck, saying that while he knows it's not as strong as Seto's old one, he believes in him, and with the heart of the cards on his side, there's no way he can lose. Even after all this time, Seto is stunned by this act of compassion, asking Yugi if he's sure, and when his little brother nods, he goes to accept, only to be stopped by Solomon, who instructs him to use his deck instead. This floors all three Moto brothers, with them all staring at their grandpa with matching looks of shock. Voice shaking, Seto protests that his grandpa put his heart and soul into that deck. He can't take it, especially not when it contains the blue eyes his old friend Professor Hawkins gave him. Smiling just as kindly as the day they met, Solomon tells the brown-haired boy that while this is all true, he has also put his heart and soul into raising his grandsons, with Seto having grown into a fine young man who duels with honor and believes in the heart of the cards. For this reason, he believes Arthur would be proud, just as Solomon himself is, to see his card in the hand of a young duelist like that. Having no words for this, Seto simply pulls his grandfather into a hug, then with a determined nod, takes the deck from the old man's hands and strides from the room, ready to put Keith in his place. Being overconfident, the American champ is not even in the dueling box when Seto arrives, having to scramble from his seat in the audience to join the young upstarts so their duel can begin. Cool as ever, Seto sardonically asks Keith if he's feeling alright, stating that he looks a little flustered, almost like he thought his opponent wasn't going to turn up. But that would be crazy. Unless... Seto doesn't have to finish this sentence, as with a snarl, Keith tells him to shut his mouth, you little trap, and duel. Smirking, Seto replies that it would be his pleasure, taking the first turn and bringing out his Celtic Guardian in attack mode. Sneer curling his lips, Keith tells Seto that his pretty boy Celtic Guardian ain't gonna be so pretty after this, before laying down an attack position monster of his own, Sword Slasher. At once a miniature version of the swordsman appears atop Keith's card, and on the bandit's cry of battle, it runs across the table and impales the Celtic Guardian, dealing the first damage of the game to Seto, even if it is only 50 life points. Cackling like a hyena, Bandit Keith then taunts his foe, saying that it looks like the twerp wants to run home and cry, and honestly he doesn't blame him, since he wouldn't want to be facing down the world's toughest duelist either. From the audience, Joey calls out to Seto, urging him not to let this no-good cheat get in his head, but with a faint grin, Seto assures his friend that he's not, and to prove it, he summons Komori Dragon. With a roar, the purple and red drake appears on the field, its yellow eyes glinting as it seems to survey its prey. Then when its master declares an attack, it belches a fireball which engulfs Sword Slasher, dropping the American's life points down to 1750, and putting Seto in the lead. The young Moto then lays one card face down and ends his turn, allowing Keith to move again, and with a scowl etched firmly on his face, he declares that he's gonna slice that little lizard into ribbons with his big bad pendulum machine. He then lays a face-down card of his own, before bringing forth a robot with a swinging blade for legs, who begins advancing on Komori Dragon with a sputtering whir. However, before it can do any damage to the winged beast, Seto smirks that Keith just activated his trap card, revealing Mirror Force. At once a shimmering barrier appears between the dragon and the machine, and when the encroaching automaton touches it, it explodes, dealing half its attack points as damage to Keith, dropping him down to 875 life points. Unfortunately, even when he is down, he is not out, as with a cackle, Keith reveals his own trap card, Time Machine, which allows him to bring back Pendulum Machine like it was at the start of the turn, meaning next turn, it's coming for that Komori Dragon, and he's pretty sure the kid's fresh out of Mirror Forces. While this is true, this does not mean Seto is out of options, as when his turn rolls around, he brings forth Curse of Dragon, and uses it to reduce Keith's Pendulum Machine to scrap once again as his life points become 625. Due to direct attacks on life points not being allowed in this tournament, Seto must end his turn here, and as Keith begins his next turn, he draws the monster that he feels confident will spell victory for him, Barrel Dragon. Summoning the Mechanical Drake, he makes use of its special ability, allowing him to attack more than once in a turn, and as its Proton Blast destroy both Komori Dragon and Curse of Dragon, he bursts into laughter, watching Seto's life points plummet from 1950 all the way down to 450. In contrast to Keith's hysterics, Seto remains stoic, refusing to rise to the bait as the American taunts that with a whopping 2600 attack, there's only a handful of creatures in all of Duel Monsters that can take on his Barrel Dragon, and if he had to guess, little Seto doesn't have any of them in his deck. Also, if he's thinking of stalling him out with defense monsters, don't bother. He's got a stop defense card in his hand, so he'll just stick him in attack mode and then wipe out the rest of the kid's life points next turn. Face it, this duel's as good as over. Silently, the grandson of Solomon reflects on how Keith is only half right in his assertions, as while it is clear that this duel will be over soon, and that Barrel Dragon is powerful, he does have one card that can beat it. The only question is, can he draw it on this next turn? Trusting in the heart of the cards, Seto allows his fingers to touch the top of his deck. Then as a sudden warmth fills him, he draws, to reveal the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Summoning the legendary beast, Seto throws Keith's words back at him, feeling no need to be manly towards a cheat and a thug, though he also has a few words of his own to add, specifically the name of the spell card he plays in conjunction with this summoning, Makyu the Magical Mist. Suddenly, a deep fog blankets the playing field, obscuring Barrel Dragon, though Blue Eyes has no such problem as it soars above the mist, roaring triumphantly as it does. Locking eyes with Keith, Seto tells him he was right to say this duel's over, but with his usual swagger and bravado, the bandit insists that his opponent can't count, since Blue Eyes is only 400 attack points stronger than Barrel Dragon, while he has 625 life points left, meaning even if Seto gets rid of his monster, he'll still be in this fight. Smirking, Seto tells the blonde man to think again, since thanks to Makyu, the Blue Eyes White Dragon's White Lightning is now 30% stronger, meaning that'll be more than enough to take out both Barrel Dragon and the remainder of his life points. This causes a vein to pulse in the American's temple as he snaps that the dweeb's bluffing. He's gotta be. But as Blue Eyes begins charging its attack, the monitor in the duel box registers the dragon's attack points as 3,900. Frantically, Keith orders Seto to call off his attack, but it's already too late, as with a roar, the Blue Eyes White Dragon fires its white lightning, clearing away the mist and incinerating Barrel Dragon. The force of this attack is so intense that Keith falls backwards off his chair, and as Seto passes him to await his final opponent, he growls at the bandit to take this as a lesson to keep his hands off stuff that doesn't belong to him. Unsurprisingly, Pegasus wins his semi-final match just as easily as he has every other, resulting in him and Seto being matched up for the title of Intercontinental Champion. Unfortunately, due to the power of the Millennium Eye, even Grandpa's deck and Seto's faith in the heart of the cards are not enough to pull out a win, with the Duel Monsters creator claiming victory after only a handful of turns. However, due to the pure heart he found while scouring his mind, not unlike that possessed by a hero on a cartoon show in fact, Pegasus does not humiliate his young opponent, instead treating him with respect and shaking his hand when the duel is concluded. As an ambitious young man, Seto is naturally disappointed by this outcome, though he supposes if he has to be second best to anyone, the man who created the game is probably the best person for that to be. Nonetheless, his friends and family are immensely proud of him for how well he dueled, with Joey, Taya, and Tristan all saying that when they get back home, they might start playing the game as well. Yugi and Mokuba meanwhile congratulate their brother on making it to the final round, while Solomon insists that Seto give him a play-by-play of what he was thinking during each turn, and what his strategy was overall. Unfortunately, this debrief has to wait, as they are soon joined by Pegasus himself, who adds his praises for Seto Boy's performance, promising that one day they must duel again, an offer the young man is eager to accept. The eccentric billionaire then bids them farewell, though not before giving Yugi a long hard look, his one visible eye locked squarely on the puzzle hanging around the boy's neck. In the months that follow, life returns to normal, with school being the gang's biggest concern, since most of the local tournaments are too small fry for someone of Seto's dueling prowess to compete in. Helpfully, Seto suggests that perhaps Yugi should try entering them, as he has become quite an accomplished duelist in his own right thanks to training with Solomon and Seto. However, here the spiky-haired boy declines, stating that he's far too busy with school, and honestly he's just happy playing with friends. Thankfully, he has plenty of chances to do this, as since returning from America, he and Seto have been coaching their friends in Duel Monsters. While Tristan and Taya mostly just dabble in the game, Joey has become a devoted student, which in turn has helped Yugi, as his confidence has improved dramatically since taking on a mentor role with Joey. And to his credit, Joey has come a long way too, though Seto does wish that Knucklehead would actually start strategizing like he taught him, instead of just relying on tough-looking monsters and luck. However, everything changes on the night of the Duel Monsters Regional Championships. As the current national champ, Seto is exempt from this qualifying round, and so he along with his friends and family watch the finals on TV at the game store. In the end, it comes down to Weevil Underwood the insect specialist versus Rex Raptor the dino duelist, with Weevil pulling out a decisive victory against his more brutish opponent. When the match is over, a special guest then makes his way onto the field, that being Pegasus, who uses this opportunity to announce an upcoming tournament on his private island for the title of King of Games. At that moment, Solomon enters carrying two large packages in his arms, one addressed to Seto and the other to Yugi. Opening them, they find near-identical parcels containing strange gloves, a set of unfamiliar cards, and a pair of golden stars each. The only difference is that Yugi's package also contains a video cassette, and figuring that this might give them some insight into who sent this strange assortment of objects, Yugi puts it in, only for the world to freeze around him as Pegasus's face appears on the TV. Worriedly, Yugi asks what's going on, and with a devilish grin, the silver-haired man answers that he's transported the boy to a place called the Shadow Realm, where ancient dark magic thrives, so they may have a special duel befitting two wielders of the Millennium items. Truthfully, Yugi doesn't know what this means, but figuring that winning Pegasus' game is the best way to get back home, he willingly gives himself over to the spirit of the Millennium Puzzle for the first time in his life, as he declares that it's time to duel. A moment later, the spirit takes Yugi's place, a turnabout that makes the duel monsters create a smile, as it proves that Yugi Boy is taking this challenge seriously. Good. He wants to take the measure of this young duelist's capabilities, a task that will require him to be pushed to his very limits. To this end, he explains that this duel will have a time limit, and when time runs out, the duelist with the highest life point total wins. So if Yugi Boy wishes to save everyone, he mustn't dawdle. Taking this to heart, Yugi, or rather the being that contains both his spirit and that residing within the Millennium Puzzle, brings forth his Blackland Fire Dragon. But due to the Millennium Eye's ability to peer into Yugi's mind, Pegasus is already aware of this, and has a counter in place, in the form of the Dragon Capture Jar. This trap immediately renders the dragon useless, or at least useless to Yugi, that is, as with his turn, Pegasus summons the Dragon Piper, who releases the Blackland Fire Dragon from captivity, though on Pegasus' side of the field. Knowing this could be very bad for him, Yugi next calls forth the Command Knight, and thanks to its special ability, its attack is raised to 1600, allowing it to slay the dragon and take 100 life points from Pegasus. However, instead of looking angry, the duel monsters creator merely giggles with glee, calling Yugi Boy a spirited and resourceful opponent as he takes his turn. Laying two cards face down in his spell and trap zone, Pegasus then proceeds to bring out his Parrot Dragon, asking if Command Knight wants to try its luck with a slightly bigger dragon. This is of course rhetorical, as a moment later, he has the Abomination swoop down upon Command Knight, with it ripping the warrior monster to shreds with evident delight. The brutality of this sight goes a long way to convincing Yugi that what he's seeing is real, as not even the Schroeder Corp holograms fought with such visceral ferocity, and when he sees his life points drop to 1600, he becomes acutely aware of how much he does not want that number to reach zero. To this end, he plays his next monster in defense mode, wanting to protect his life points until he is able to make a counterattack. Unfortunately, here too Pegasus is ready for him, having laid the trap Gorgon's Eye, which petrifies Yugi's Magician's Valkyria and leaves it exposed to Parrot Dragon's attack. But this is not the worst of it, as when the stone statue that was once Valkyria crumbles, Yugi's life points take a hit equal to half of Valkyria's defense points, leaving him with only 700 life points, while Pegasus is still at 1900. Knowing that he can't afford to take another hit like that, Yugi puts his faith in the heart of the cards to deliver him something strong enough to fight that Parrot Dragon, though when he draws, he is at first disappointed with what he sees, Silent Magician level 4. While this is one of the real Yugi's favourite monsters, its rather paltry 1000 attack points won't stand a chance against the dragon's 2000. That is until our hero realizes he might actually have just the card he needs to change that already in his hand. Summoning Silent Magician in attack mode, Yugi next throws down the Card of Sanctity, stating that now both players must draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. Boredly, Pegasus urges the boy not to patronize him, as he's the one who invented the card, but all the same he draws 3 times to fill up his hand. As he does, Silent Magician's power begins to swell, skyrocketing from 1000 up to 2500. And when this is done, Yugi orders a silent burning attack which turns the Parrot Dragon into a Sunday roast. Groaning in despair, Pegasus watches his life points drop to 1400. Then when Yugi ends his turn, he draws again, further strengthening the Silent Magician to 3000 attack points. From his side of the field, Yugi can't help but grin. After such a bad start, it seems that things are really turning around. All he needs is a way to do damage to Pegasus' life points, and then the match will be his. However, before any such opportunity arises, the timer on the VCR runs out, causing the Industrial Illusions CEO to laugh that it seems like their match is over. A shame, as Yugi Boy was really starting to impress him. No matter, they will duel again, and for far higher stakes. Scowling, Yugi protests that he's done with Pegasus' games, but this only elicits a chuckle from the Silverhaired Man, as he retorts that with the right incentive, he can make anyone bend to his will. He then parts the curtain of hair covering his left eye to reveal a golden eye bearing the same symbol as the Millennium Puzzle. At last, what Pegasus said at the beginning of the match makes sense, though it still comes as something of a shock, with Yugi almost missing the faint frown that briefly crosses the man's face. However, a moment later this is gone, with an exultant cackle taking its place as a beam of golden light shoots from the eye, bathing Solomon and causing his spirit to be sucked into the TV. Frantically, grandfather and grandson cry out for each other, but far too soon, the screen cuts to black, leaving regular Yugi screaming for his grandpa as all around him his friends and brothers come too. Worriedly, Seto asks what happened, and in a shaking voice, Yugi recounts the events of his duel with Pegasus and the consequences of his loss. Not wanting to believe this is happening, Seto next rushes over to Solomon, only to find him comatose, and as he stares into the vacant eyes of the man who gave him a new life, he makes a silent promise that together he and Yugi will get their grandpa back, and when they do, Pegasus will pay dearly for splitting up their family. For a time, no one speaks, all too horrified by Pegasus' abduction of Solomon to make a sound. However, this cannot last forever, and as the most proactive among them, Seto takes it upon himself to make a plan. Turning to the packages sent to him and Yugi, he begins to examine them more closely, with Yugi joining in once the shock of what has just happened wears off. Together they identify the instruction cards detailing how they are meant to get to Duelist Kingdom for Pegasus' tournament. Figuring this must be what he meant about them dueling again, both Yugi and Seto reluctantly agree to play the psychotic businessman's games. Though when Mokuba voices his desire to help, the elder two Murdo brothers disagree, with Seto categorically forbidding it, while Yugi more moderately suggests that what Seto means is it'll be incredibly dangerous, and they don't want to put their little brother in harm's way. Petulantly, Mokuba insists that he doesn't care, since Solomon is his grandpa too, and he wants to rescue him just as much as his brothers, but the elder pair stand firm, unwilling to risk losing another family member to Pegasus. Seeing that this deadlock won't break anytime soon, Taya speaks up, saying that if Seto and Yugi want, she can keep an eye on Mokuba, earning her their thanks. In contrast, Mokuba looks deeply betrayed, though when his big brothers aren't looking, she shoots him a conspiratorial wink. After this, everyone slowly starts heading home as they have school in the morning, with even Yugi and Mokuba heading to bed after an ambulance has arrived to take Solomon's body to the hospital. Seto alone stays awake, staring vacantly at the TV screen. How could he let this happen? When they really needed him, he was helpless to protect both his brother and grandfather from Pegasus. But that's not the only person Yugi needs protection from. He had mentioned that strange spirit from the night he completed the puzzle taking over his body again. Seto still doesn't know what that entity wants with Yugi, but he certainly doesn't trust it, or the fact that it tends to show up whenever dark magic is around. Meanwhile, in his room, Yugi is experiencing a very similar crisis. Like Seto, he blames himself for Solomon's kidnapping, though in his eyes, the fault lies with his weakness. If only he were a better duelist, none of this would be happening, and Seto wouldn't be forced to walk straight into Pegasus' lair to fix his mistake. Seto's always going out of his way to save him, no matter the cost, but it's time for that to change. He's done letting people he loves pay the price for him. He's gonna rescue his grandpa, but more than that, he's gonna stop chasing Seto's back and prove himself to be his brother's equal. That way he can protect him for a change. As a result, neither brother gets a wink of sleep that night, though when they arrive at school the next morning, they find they are not the only ones in an altered state, as Joey has become sullen and subdued. Yugi mistakenly believes that he is still upset about last night, but Seto has other ideas, and so at the end of the day corners the blonde boy, demanding to know what's wrong. In his usual attempt at macho-ness, Joey shrugs this off, but with a joking growl to his voice, Seto tells Joey that he's not going to take no for an answer, so he can either tell him what's wrong and they can work through it together, or he can tell him what's wrong and they can work through it together after he's given him a beating worse than the day they became friends. Smiling in spite of himself, Joey laughingly protests that he gave as good as he got in that fight, before flopping to the ground as he begins to explain how he received word from his sister Serenity that she's gonna go blind unless she gets a really expensive operation that he can't afford. Without missing a beat, Seto offers Joey all the prize money he has left from his various tournament victories, but the blonde shakes his head, saying he appreciates his best friend's offer, but it'll take way more than Seto's got to save Serenity. He'd need the sort of money Pegasus is offering as the grand prize for his tournament to cover the operation. Looking Joey squarely in the eye, Seto tells him in that case he should enter the tournament and win it. After all, he did say he'd do anything for his little sister. Meeting Seto's eye, Joey says that's true, but he's not so sure he could cut it, since he's no Duel Monsters genius like him or Yug. Firmly, the brunette tells his friend that he's wrong. He's a talented duelist, at least on par with some of the guys he's faced in the big tournaments. Joey, however, still seems unconvinced, so fixing with an intense glare, Seto orders him to stop acting like a scared puppy dog and do his duty as a big brother. His tone and expression so fearsome that for a second, Joey actually does get a little scared. Though this is exactly what he needs, as he bounds to his feet, stating that yes, Seto's right. He can't be wimping out, no one Serenity's counting on him. Rising to his own feet, Seto claps his friend on the back, then without another word, the pair start heading back to the game shop to make a plan. It is therefore a team of 3 who make their way to the pier 1 week later, with Yugi, Joey, and Seto each in possession of the requisite starships to gain entry to the ship. though in Joey and Seto's cases, it is more like starships singular. Yugi had offered to give Joey one of his starships, reasoning that with Seto being a better duelist than him, he shouldn't handicap himself. But Seto had retorted that as a more experienced duelist, he would have an easier time winning himself a replacement. In a surprisingly bold move for the spiky-haired boy, Yugi had held firm on his desire not to inconvenience Seto, urging Joey to take one of his starships, while Seto had done likewise. Seeing that neither brother would budge an inch, Joey had suggested they duel for it, and as per usual, Seto had won, earning him the right to give Joey one of his starships. Lining up, the boys are all cleared to board the cruise ship, even if Kimo the security guard does find it questionable that two of them only have one starship each. Once they're on board, the trio make for Seto's room, since as the Japanese champion, he is one of the select few passengers to have been afforded one. However, they don't stay here long, as after dropping their bags, Joey grins that he's gonna see if he can make some trades to soup up his deck, while Yugi and Seto decide to scope out the competition. Strolling among the other duelists, Yugi quickly bumps into Rex Raptor, who is being thrown out of a neighboring room by a blonde woman. Flushing with embarrassment, the Dino duelist tells the little squirt to mind his own business, but when he sees Seto right behind him, his tune changes dramatically, with him asking if Yugi knows the national champ. Grinning nonchalantly, Yugi replies that Seto's his brother, a fact which makes Rex blanch, as he thinks it's bad enough Seto Moto is here, but now he has a brother too? This just makes his goal to win the prize money 2 times harder. All the same, he eyes Yugi up and down and feels a bit of his confidence returning. This kid is pretty shrimpy, and he's never seen him at any of the playoffs, so maybe he's actually not that good of a duelist and was only invited because his bro's the champ. Yeah, that's it, which means he'll be easy pickings for his dinos when the tournament starts. Spotting the crafty grin forming on the regional runner-up's face, Seto puts an arm around Yugi's shoulder and leads him away from Rex and out onto the deck. Being among duelists, everyone knows who Seto is, and so give him a wide berth, with the brothers making their way to the railings overlooking the sea. Despite the awful situation they're in, it is a beautiful sight, a sentiment Mokuba echoes when Yugi expresses it to Seto. Wait, Mokuba? Whipping their heads round, Yugi and Seto spot Mokuba leaning against the deck railing as if nothing is out of place, while not far from him, Taya and Tristan are attempting to hide between some crates. Incredulously, Seto demands to know what's going on, reminding Taya that she promised to watch Mokuba, but with a sheepish smile, Taya replies that she is watching him, she just didn't say where. At this, Seto lets out an annoyed huff, as Tristan laughs that Taya really got him there. Playing peacemaker, Yugi sighs they can't change things now, so the others should head back to the room before the guards catch them without starships. Eager to get out of the cold, Tristan and Taya don't hesitate to take Yugi up on the offer, but Mokuba decides to stay, his eyes fixed squarely on the horizon. A little while later, they are joined by Joey, who is grinning ear to ear as he shows off the assortment of spells and traps he got. Recognizing Baby Dragon, Yugi offers Joey another monster to add to his deck, that being Time Wizard, and though Seto is loath to see his brother encourage Joey's luck-based dueling, the blonde gratefully accepts after learning how it can be used to create Thousand Dragon, though not without the risk of losing everything. From here, the rest of the trip goes smoothly, with the friends all camping out in Seto's stateroom. As they have been doing for the last week, Yugi, Joey, and Seto continue to have intense practice duels, going all out against each other, since they know that once they reach the island, they will need to be at their very best if they want to save the ones they love. A few hours later, the sun rises, and with it so do our heroes, looking out over the water towards the rapidly approaching Duelist Kingdom. After disembarking, they are all stewarded up to the courtyard of Pegasus' castle, where their platinum-haired host welcomes them all to his home and lays out the format of the tournament. The first round is a simple free-for-all, in which anyone may challenge anyone else, with those who earn 10 starships being granted entry into the castle for the finals. He also alludes to there being other rules, though with a cackle, he declines to mention what they are, as it will make things more entertaining if the duelists have to figure them out as they go. He then gives them 1 hour to prepare, before swanning back inside and bidding them all good luck. When the hour of preparation is over, Yugi, Joey, and Seto head off to find their first opponent. As it turns out, they don't have long to wait, with them soon coming across Weevil Underwood, who greets them cordially, asking if Seto would like to duel, since this tournament got in the way of them getting a chance to at Nationals. Figuring there's no sense in waiting, Seto accepts, with Weevil bidding him and his friends to follow him, since there's a duel box not far from here they can use. Having no reason to distrust Weevil, Seto joins him in the box, taking his seat on the other side of the table from him. With his keenly analytical mind, it does not take the young prodigy long to notice something is different about the playmat of this box. Of the 28 spaces, 23 of them are covered with holographic trees that look like the forest surrounding them, while his 5 monster spaces more closely resemble a wasteland. Seto doesn't know what this means, though being wary of Pegasus, he is wise enough to surmise that it does mean something. However, now is not the time to figure it out, as Weevil is once more called for his attention, saying that since Seto only has one star chip left, he will only wager one as well. That is unless the brunette has something else to ante which might induce him to bet the other chip. Reading between the lines, Seto nods that very well, he will wager his title, meaning that if Weevil wins, he will be officially recognized as the National Duel Monsters Champion of Japan. This makes the turquoise-haired youth cackle and stamp his feet with glee, since he had hoped Seto would offer him this shortcut to the top, but as promised, he lays his second star chip on the table, signaling for the duel to begin. Greedily, Weevil takes the first move, and without hesitation brings forth his big insect in attack mode. Seeing as how is only a 1200 attack point monster, Seto has an easy counter for this, calling forth his winged dragon Guardian of the Fortress and instructing it to destroy Big Insect with a fireball attack. At once, the blue dragon belches an orb of flame, and as it seemingly consumes its opponent, Joey cheers that Seto barbecued that bug. However, Weevil does not seem concerned, pushing his glasses up his nose and urging Seto to look more closely. Examining the field, Seto is shocked to see that his winged dragon is the one who's been destroyed, with his life points having been reduced to 1800. Aghast, Seto asks how that happened, as his monster was stronger than Weevil's, but with another cackle, the bug specialist reveals that the terrain of the battlefield denotes a field power bonus, and since his insect monster was played in a forest space, it receives a 30% power increase, making its true attack 1600, more than enough to obliterate Seto's dragon. Grimacing, Seto ends his turn, allowing Weevil to summon his killer needle, though it seems that like the Intercontinental Championships, direct attacks are forbidden, meaning Seto survives this turn. However, he will not survive another unless he draws something powerful now, and so reaching out, he implores the Heart of the Cards to give him a monster he can use to save himself, and his grandpa. At once, he feels his deck respond, though unlike when he drew Blue Eyes against Keith, this is not a warm feeling, but rather something cold and distant. Drawing, he sees that it's the Dark Magician, a monster Yugi has always loved, though right now, he is more concerned with its considerable power, playing it in attack mode and commanding it to destroy Killer Needle. Once more, there is the slightest of disconnects between Duelist and Monster, as the Dark Magician seems to hesitate a moment before carrying out its orders. Thankfully, this quickly passes, with the Dark Magic attack making short work of the bee and dropping Weevil's life points to 1100. With a gasp, the Insect Duelist calls this inconceivable, demanding to know how Seto could so heartlessly squash an innocent bug. Calmly, Seto replies that he needs to make it to Pegasus' castle, so he's afraid he can't hold back. Sorry. Gritting his teeth, Weevil snarls that the brunette will be, as he brings out one of his strongest monsters, his Insect Queen. He then has his queen feast on Big Insect, and once the ant is devoured, she lays an egg, then uses her queen's toxic breath attack to blow Dark Magician away. Thanks to the field power bonus and her special ability, Insect Queen's attack points have been raised to 3060, meaning when Dark Magician falls, so does Seto's life points, landing at 1240. Staring at the miniature monarch in horror, Seto reflects on how even Blue Eyes can't overcome Insect Queen now, leaving with the difficult question of how he's supposed to win this. Seeing Seto's worry, Yugi and the others cheer him on, and this gives the boy the shot of confidence he needs, even if it's only to lay a monster in defense mode. In response, Weevil simply summons his basic insect, though it does not stay long, as after the Insect Queen gorges herself upon it, she destroys Seto's face-down monster, rendering him defenseless once again. Now it is Seto's turn, and this time he draws a trap, but not just any trap, one that if played right might be enough to win him the duel. Laying it in his spell and trap zone, he brings out his mystical elf in attack mode, hoping that in his haste, Weevil will take the somewhat obvious bait. Luckily for Seto, Weevil is too blinded by hubris to see that he's being played, with the glasses-clad youth declaring his victory prematurely as he brings out a new bug, then sacrifices it so that Insect Queen can wipe out Mystical Elf and the remainder of Seto's life points. However, this is where Seto reveals his trap, Mirror Force, at which point a prismatic screen appears in front of the Mystical Elf, negating the attack, then firing it back at Insect Queen. With a shriek, the bug is then felled by her own bad breath, and as she keels over, half of her increased attack points are taken out of Weevil's life points, dropping them to 0 and ending the duel in Seto's favor. Despite Weevil's bad attitude, Seto still attempts to be gracious in victory, thanking Weevil for a challenging duel and extending a hand to shake. Unfortunately, Weevil refuses to accept this, snatching up his star chips and hollering that he will not be the first person eliminated from this tournament. The insect specialist then attempts to run off, though the moment he steps foot outside of the duel box, he is met by Tristan and Joey, both of whom adopt their most menacing expressions from their bullying days, as they ask where this little worm thinks he's going. Nervously, Weevil tries to make up an excuse, but the boys won't hear it, with Joey claiming Weevil's dueling gauntlet for himself and his star chips for Seto, while Tristan gives him the bum's rush, calling him a no-good cheat as he does. After this, the gang head a bit further south to a coastal region, where a bunch of duel boxes are positioned overlooking the sea. Eagerly, Joey declares that this is where he's going to find his first opponent, having been fired up by Seto's duel. However, the first person they come across is the blonde woman Yugi briefly saw on the boat, and it seems she has no interest in dueling Joey, telling him to buzz off since she only has eyes for the champ's little brother. Grumbling, Joey stalks over to stand with his friends, while this unnamed challenger beckons Yugi to follow her into the box. When they are seated, she finally introduces herself, saying that her name is My Valentine, the psychic duelist, before laying her opening hand face down on the table, along with her 2 wagered star chips. Yugi meanwhile gets ready for his first Duelist Kingdom duel, reminding himself of his vow to stop chasing his brother's back and drawing on the spirit of the puzzle to give him strength. A moment later, the transformed Yugi draws his opening hand and goes first, summoning Blackland Fire Dragon in attack mode. Now it is Mai's turn, and after hovering her hand over her face-down cards, she declares that she will summon Harpy Lady and equip it with Rose Whip, unerringly identifying both cards as she places them along with a pair of face-down spells or traps on the field. With the field power bonus and the equip spell combined, Harpy Lady has an attack of 1,990, more than enough to dispatch Blackland Fire Dragon and take a chunk out of Yugi's life points, which are reduced to 1,510. Yugi has no response to this, with Seto and Mokuba initially suspecting their brother is simply keeping up a poker face. But then Mokuba notices something in Yugi's eyes. Fear. Frantically, he points this out to Seto, who growls that Yugi must be thinking about his duel with Pegasus, since he said the duel monster's creator employed similar tricks to beat him there. Seto is absolutely right in this, as in his head, Yugi is paralyzed with fear, his terror overriding any sense of calm the spirit of the puzzle is trying to exude. What if Mai can see into his mind, and knows what cards he's gonna play? What if she already knows his strategies? How is he supposed to overcome an opponent like that? And if he can't, then how will he be able to face his friends and brothers again, knowing he lost his one chance to help save Grandpa? This rattled mindset causes Yugi to act in haste, bringing out King's Knight and having to attack Harpy Lady, trusting in the field power bonus to carry him through. Unfortunately, this fails to take into account Mai's face-down cards, with one being a trap called Mirror Wall. Mirror Wall's effect cuts King's Knight's attack in half, meaning that when Mai has Harpy Lady attack next turn, it easily destroys the warrior, and knocks Yugi down to 560 life points, while Mai still has a full 2,000. Weighing his options, Yugi decides to play defensively for now, trusting that his deck will come through from in the end, and so plays Meteor Dragon in defense mode, since its 2,000 points should be too much for Harpy Lady to overcome. Unfortunately, Mai has a counter for this too, only strengthening the theory that she can peer into his mind as she reveals her other face-down card, that being Shadow of Eyes. This forces Meteor Dragon into attack mode, though instead of attacking the dragon, Mai next plays her Elegant Egotist spell, turning Harpy Lady into the Harpy Lady sisters, each for whom brandishes a cruel-looking Rose Whip. Mai then tells Yugi that Elegant Egotist's secondary effect means she can't attack this turn, but it doesn't really matter, since now our Harpies have more than enough attack points to wipe out Yugi's dragon and his life points, so she'll just finish him off next turn. After all, thanks to a Shadow of Eyes' alluring scent, he can't play anything in defense mode, and even if he could summon a monster strong enough to threaten her Harpies, Mirror Wall would just cut its attack in half. Face it, hun, this duel's over. Though he hates to admit it, Yugi can't help but feel as though Mai is right. She's outplayed him at every turn, and now he's gonna lose it all. Eyes stinging, Yugi screws them up. Though oddly enough, tears do not fall, and it is only when this one sense is cut off that the others enhance enough to reveal the cause. It is a powerful scent that is making his eyes burn, and while at first Yugi assumes that this must be the Schroeder tech, manifesting Shadow of Eyes' power, he quickly realizes that what he's smelling isn't one scent, but many different perfumes, all clashing as they waft over from Mai's side of the field. At once Yugi understands, and so locking eyes with the blonde, he accuses her of marking her cards with perfumes to create the impression of telepathy and throw him off his game. Scowling, Mai curses the dinky little duel box for keeping the smell in, though it doesn't matter now, since even if he knows her game, she's already won this duel, and when he gets booted off the island, her secret will be safe. Adopting a confident expression, Yugi points out that this is only true if he loses, and he still has one more turn to save himself. Scornfully, Mai tells him to take that turn then, not that it'll do him any good, and with a nod, Yugi does. With his faith in himself and his deck now restored, Yugi is able to tap into the heart of the cards, drawing Pot of Greed, which he plays. This allows him to draw 2 cards, Heavy Storm and Gift of the Martyr. Looking between these cards and the ones in his hand, our young hero thinks he might just be able to win. First off, he plays his Queen's Knight in attack mode, and as the miniature hologram of the warrior appears, Mai scoffs that it'll take more than his little girlfriend to defeat her Harpy Lady sisters, especially with her trap card in play. However, Yugi retorts that he isn't done, as next he activates Heavy Storm, removing Shadow of Eyes, Mirror Wall, and Rose Whip from the field. Now Mai is starting to get worried, as Queen's Knight has the power to take out one of her harpies, but Yugi just smiles that he already told her he isn't done yet. He then plays Monster Reborn, which allows him to return King's Knight to the field, and as per its effect, Jack's Knight emerges from Yugi's deck to complete the trio. Thanks to the field power bonus on Yugi's side of the field favoring warrior monsters, each of the knights is powerful enough to slay one of Mai's harpies, but even if they all did so, she would still have life points left, a fact which bolsters the con artist's confidence until Yugi plays his last card, Gift of the Martyr. By sacrificing Meteor Dragon, Yugi is able to add an extra 1800 attack points to Jack's Knight, meaning that when the knights clash with the harpies, Mai loses all her life points in one fell swoop. Such a rapid turnabout leaves Mai dazed, though Yugi isn't done with her, as in a tone of cold fury, he states that she disgraces the title of Duelist by using lies and trickery to exploit those who duel with honor. However, despite her best efforts, his faith in the heart of the cards won out, something he hopes she will in turn learn to believe in once he frees her mind of darkness. That same gold knife from his first appearance then glows on Yugi's forehead, and as he thrusts out an arm, Mai falls forward, her eyes vacant. This sight horrifies Seto, further cementing his distrust for the spirit of the Millennium Puzzle, and as the person bearing Yugi's face rises to collect his 2 new star chips, Seto calls out to him, stating that he knows he's not Yugi, and he also knows that if he tries anything funny, or anything that could cause harm to his brothers or his friends, he, Seto, will make the spirit pay. Looking the brunette in the eye, the Revenant solemnly vows that he has no ill intentions towards any of them, but after what he's just seen, it'll take a lot more than this to convince the protective big brother, a fact the spirit recognizes, giving Seto a nod, then relinquishing his control of the body so that Yugi can return. Worriedly, Seto asks if Yugi is okay, but with a concerned look on his face, Joey suggested his pal ought to be asking Mai that, since it looks like she fainted. Half jokingly, Tristan suggests that Joey could always take the rest of her star chips while no one's looking, since even after losing a pair to Yugi, she still has several left. But pouncing on the bigger boy, Joey calls that dishonest, and besides, he's gonna win this whole tournament through pure skill. He doesn't need any handouts. At this point, Taya cuts in, a smirk on her face as she says this obviously doesn't apply to the star chips Seto gave him, with Joey hanging his head and crying that with friends like her, who needs enemies? Trying to cheer Joey up, Yugi suggests they go look for an opponent for him now, while the blonde boy admits that at this point, he'd settle for lunch. Luckily, they're able to find both, as by following the coast, they soon come across an unattended campfire with several fish cooking over it, and unable to help themselves, Joey and Tristan make a beeline for the food, while their more sensible friends urge them to stay back. However, before either boy can sink their teeth into the fish, a muscular young man with a harpoon in his hands emerges from the ocean and orders them to unhand his plunder. Gulping, Tristan asks if this is the man's food, to which the stranger replies that it most certainly is, and now these two are gonna pay for trying to steal from him. Brandishing the harpoon at Joey and Tristan, the muscular man advances on them until he spots something on Joey's wrist, a duel gauntlet. At once his demeanor shifts, with him dropping the weapon and telling them to forgive his hastiness. He did not realize they were fellow duelists. He then introduces himself as Mako Tsunami and tells the boys that they are free to dine with him, so long as they do something for him in return. Eagerly chowing down, Joey says that's fine, causing Mako to grin that he hoped he would say that, as the price of this meal is a duel with him. Bursting from the tree line, Yugi implores Joey not to go through with this, saying Mako ranked 3rd in the regionals and reminding him that with only 1 star chip, if he loses he can't get the prize money for Serenity's eye operation. Sighing, Joey says he knows that, but he already promised he'd duel Mako, so he's gotta do this. Otherwise, what kind of man would he be? And worse, what kind of example would he be setting for Serenity if he only made it to the top by going back on his word and running when things look tough? Joining his brother by the fire, Seto says that he agrees with Joey on this one, while Taya adds that there's no point arguing, so all they can do is believe in him. Adopting a smile, Yugi nods his support, then shooting Joey a thumbs up, tells him they're all behind him, so now it's up to him to win this duel for his sister. A little while later, after everyone has filled their belly on Mako's catches, he and Joey take their places in a seaside duel box. Being a gentleman, Mako gives Joey the first move, and eager to prove that he belongs here, the spunky blonde comes out swinging, summoning his Tiger Axe in attack mode. In response, Mako begins his first turn by summoning Fiend Kraken, though here something odd happens. While a hologram of Tiger Axe appeared atop its card when Joey summoned the monster, nothing appears for Mako, with Joey curiously asking if the box is faulty or something. Smirking, Mako assures his opponent that everything is working exactly as it should, before pointing out the field which Joey only now realizes is half wasteland, half ocean. The ocean duelist then explains that in the ocean, his aquatic monsters can lurk beneath the surface until it's time to attack, which it presently is. At once, a pair of tentacles shoot out of the water, wrapping around Tigerax and dragging it into the murky depths. Vainly, Joey tells his monster to chop its way to freedom, but it's already too late, as with a gurgling yowl, Tigerax meets a watery end, as Joey's life points are reduced to 1,740. Undeterred, Joey next brings out Garuzzi's, with a grin that his big bad lizard's got enough attack points to cut Fiend Kraken into calamari. Still calm, Mako acknowledges that while this is true, there's one problem with Joey's plan, and that's the fact that unless Garuzzi's is really good at holding its breath, it won't get near enough to his monster to do any damage. To prove his point, he encourages Joey to attack, and though the Moto brothers all warn him it's a trap, Joey's gut wins out over his head, with him having Garuzzi's use Battle Blade's strike. Roaring fiercely, the Lizard Knight runs to the water's edge and swings its axe with gusto, though this does little more than briefly part the surface of the water before returning to normal. Smirking a little, Mako then asks if Joey sees what he means. His monsters can't touch the great denizens of the deep, so he's afraid Joey's all washed up. Now it is Mako's turn again, and with it he summons his Great White Terror, a fearsome shark who promptly sticks its head out of the water just far enough to clamp its powerful jaws around Garuzzi's, and thanks to the field power bonus, makes chum out of the reptile, while Joey's life points take another hit, now being 1,590. Unfortunately, Joey's life points aren't the only things to have suffered damage, as when Great White Terror retreats back into the ocean, Joey hangs his head, muttering that maybe it really is hopeless. However, before he can say any more on the matter, a new voice speaks up, that being Seto's, as he barks at his best friend that he better not be thinking of quitting or anything stupid like that. Sure, he messed up, but the duel's still going, so now he's got to pull himself together and use this setback as a reminder to duel with his head like he taught him. Meeting his eyes, Joey nods that yeah, his pal's right. He ain't about to throw in the towel, and more than that, he's just come up with an awesome new strategy. He then summons Baby Dragon in attack mode, though instead of just leaving it there, he instructs the fledgling to take flight, grinning that Mako's not the only one who can make use of the terrain. Nodding, Mako calls this a clever move, though warns that such a young dragon will need to get close to the ground in order to attack his aquatic beasts, and when it does, it's fish food. Getting his confidence back a little, Joey replies that while this is true, for now his dragon and his life points are safe, a claim Mako disputes, as with it being his turn again, he's able to summon a monster, Flying Fish. At once, a nasty-looking winged fish appears, zipping atop the waves, while with a proud smile, Mako states that this should be able to reel in his baby dragon without issue. However, here Joey points out a problem, that even with the field power bonus, Flying Fish still has fewer attack points than Baby Dragon, so if they fought, that guppy would get deep-fried. Nodding, Mako agrees that this would be true, if not for his equip spell, Sharkify. Suddenly, Flying Fish begins to mutate, growing larger, with its face becoming more pointed, while a wicked-looking fin sprouts out of its back. Then when the transformation is complete, Mako orders his flying shark to make a meal out of Baby Dragon. From the sideline, Taya gasps that she can't watch, but to the surprise of everyone, when Flying Shark goes in for the kill, Baby Dragon deftly dodges, then even more shockingly, it fires back with a torrent of its flame breath, incinerating the shark and costing Mako 100 life points. Looking stunned, the Ocean Duelist demands to know how this is possible, positing for the first time that maybe the duel box is defective, but with a satisfied smirk, Seto answers that it's not a glitch, Mako just made a mistake. By having Flying Shark get so far out of the water, it lost its field power bonus, and this left it vulnerable to Joey's dragon. Looking annoyed, Mako huffs that even if he lost one fish, the rest of his creatures are still safe thanks to the ocean battlefield. But with a cocky grin, Joey tells his opponent not to be so sure of that, as he summons his next monster, Flame Swordsman. However, he isn't done yet, as with a laugh, he says that he's going to take a leaf from Mako's book and use an equip spell called Salamandra. At once, the flames of the swordsman's blade coalesce into a fiery dragon, and on Joey's command, the Flame Swordsman has this draconic fire target Fiend Kraken. Due to being a magical flame, it is not extinguished as it travels underwater, instead causing the water around it to boil as it wraps around the giant squid and destroys it. Seeing the surface of the water begin to bubble, Joey strikes upon another idea, and so has Baby Dragon fly lower so it can add the power of its flame breath to the assault. Together, these two fire attacks are enough to quickly turn Mako's precious ocean into a pot of boiling water, and as a creature that can only exist in the sea, Great White Terror soon finds itself floating belly up as the main ingredient in Joey's comeback soup. Thanks to the field power bonus, the damage Mako receives from this attack is just enough to wipe out his remaining life points, meaning that in a shocking turn of events, Joey has beaten the regional bronze medalist. Rising to his feet, Mako shakes Joey's hand, congratulating him on a well-fought duel, while handing over the star chip he wagered. Due to having 2 star chips left, this is not the end for the Ocean Duelist, with him promising to meet up with the group again at Pegasus's castle, a deal everyone is happy to accept, with them all parting as friends. As they go, Joey beams that he's the greatest, a bubble Seto is happy to burst, playfully stating that his friend got lucky, that's all. Angrily, Joey retorts that it was all strategy just like Seto and Yugi taught him, though with a laugh of his own, Mokuba suggests that maybe Joey should actually be the one giving the dueling advice. After all, he finished his duel with more life points than either of the brothers. Yugi and Seto are both stunned by this claim, though they suppose Mokuba is right. However, this moment of surprise comes at a cost, as with a delighted cheer, Joey capitalizes on Seto's bewilderment to get him in a headlock and administer a noogie as he declares that the brunette better watch out, since maybe he'll come for his title next. Huffing, Seto tells his excitable friend to dream on, since if they dueled seriously, he'd crush him in 2 turns flat. However, before Joey can deliver a response, a figure in a suit steps out of the trees and requests their attention. Immediately, everyone recognizes him as Kimo, the security guard from the boat, and in a tone that will brook no argument, he instructs them to follow him, as Master Pegasus has arranged a special duel for Seto. Laying a hand on his brother's arm, Yugi implores Seto not to trust the man, but in a reassuring tone, the brunette replies that he won't, though he does want to see what sort of game Pegasus has cooked up for him. Cackling, Kimo smirks that it's one the young man won't ever forget, as he leads the group to a duel box seemingly in the middle of nowhere. Someone is already seated inside, and figuring this must be his opponent, Seto enters as well, though when he sees who is supposed to be dueling, he freezes. It's his grandpa! The face of Solomon twists into a sneer as he looks up at Seto, seemingly finding some cruel amusement in the boy's recognition. Then after a moment he speaks, confirming that yes, indeed he is the spirit of Seto's grandfather, back from the Shadow Realm. Still shocked, Seto asks what his grandpa is doing here, and why he's dueling for the man who kidnapped him, though with an unmistakable coldness to his voice, Solomon replies that he's not dueling for Pegasus. Pegasus simply gave him the chance to get revenge on his good-for-nothing grandsons. This claim only horrifies the young brunette more, but with a look of confusion, Yugi asks why Grandpa wants revenge on them, to which the old man answers that both Yugi and Seto failed him by standing idly by as his soul was stolen. Since then, he has languished in torment, the likes of which the kids cannot imagine. Though luckily, Pegasus has given him an out. If he can beat Seto in a duel, the boy can take his place in the Shadow Realm, while he will be allowed to go free. Stepping forward, Seto states that he is sorry he couldn't save his grandpa, and he will find a way to save him from his prison. He promises, but this is not it, since there has to be a way where they can all go home together. At these words, Solomon's face darkens, and in a tone he's never taken with his grandsons before, he snarls that Seto is an ungrateful brat. He gave the boy everything, so by all rights, he should be able to do with Seto as he pleases. This claim proves too much for Yugi, who tearfully tells Seto not to listen to their grandfather, since clearly Pegasus has done something to his mind. The real grandpa loves Seto, and would never say these things about him. Masking his own hurt, Seto nods that he knows, but that's why he has to battle the old man, since maybe by beating him in a duel, he can free his mind of Pegasus' poison. He then takes a seat, wagering all 3 of his star chips, while with a malevolent laugh, Grandpa does the same, causing the table to come to life as both duelists draw their opening hands. Taking the first move, Seto summons his Beaver Warrior in attack mode, but the armored rodent is not going to stay around for long, as with a grunt, Grandpa summons his Feral Imp, also in attack mode, and has it savage the Beaver, dropping Seto's life points to 1900. He then lays 2 cards face down, and ends his turn. Gritting his teeth, Seto realizes that the old man isn't pulling any punches, and with an opponent of his grandpa's caliber, neither can he. To that end, he summons one of his grandpa's signature monsters, the Dark Magician, and while he feels the same odd resistance as last time, he cannot dwell on it, commanding the mage to use Dark Magic attack on the imp. Raising his staff, Dark Magician complies, though before the blow can land, Grandpa reveals the first of his face downs, the Spellbinding Circle, which promptly ensnares the magician, weakening him and leaving him exposed to a counterattack. Unluckily for Seto, Solomon has one lined up, and if there was any doubt before that the old man wasn't using his own deck, it is immediately snuffed out when he summons the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Seto has never been so terrified to see his favorite monster before, but this terror is only amplified when his grandpa employs a combo that he taught his grandsons long ago, equipping the dragon with Horn of the Unicorn and going for game. From the sidelines, Yugi, Mokuba, Joey, Tei, and Tristan all cry out for Seto. Though as white lightning shoots from Blue Eye's mouth, Seto puts his faith in one last card, Magical Hats. Suddenly, a quartet of hats appear on the field, hiding the magician, and as one is eviscerated by the draconic attack, everyone holds their breath and waits to see if this was the one containing the Dark Magician. Looking at his life point total, Seto is relieved to see that it is not, and so with it now being his turn again, he draws, pulling Brain Control. Seeing his own chance to end things now, the brunette immediately plays the spell, gaining control of the empowered Blue Eyes and telling it to wipe out Feral Imp and all of his grandfather's life points. However, here Solomon reveals his second face down, Mirror Force, with the trap card destroying Blue Eyes and dropping Seto to a scant 50 life points. Though Dark Magician is spared thanks to the hats, Seto is shattered, unable to believe that he fell for such an obvious ruse. Since he and his grandpa are using identical decks, he knows every card the old man has, so why didn't he pick up that the second face down would be a trap? From outside the box, Yugi and Mokuba know what must be going through Seto's head, since he's always too hard on himself, and so call out to their brother, telling him that it's not his fault, and that anyone would be rattled in his position. What matters is that he doesn't lose focus, otherwise he'll be sent to the Shadow Realm for sure. Looking into the eyes of Yugi and Mokuba, Seto forces himself to straighten up. He can't fail here, not when his brothers are counting on him. Seeing this, Solomon states that if Seto will not accept defeat, then as the one who taught him how to duel, he will make this his final lesson, bringing forth Summon Skull and commanding it to attack the rightmost hat. Fortunately for Seto, this hat is also empty, allowing him another turn. Making the most of it, Seto wastes no time in fusion summoning Gaia the Dragon Champion and dispatching his grandfather's fiend now that he has no more face downs to use against him. This deals the first damage of the match to Solomon, bringing him down to 1900 life points. A small victory, though Seto is well aware that he still has a long way to go if he wants to win this, especially when he only has 50 points of his own. Now it is Grandpa's turn again, and showing off yet another of their shared cards, he brings forth the Dark Magician, though unlike Seto's mage, he equips his with the Book of Secret Arts, boosting Dark Magician's attack to the point where it can wipe out both the Dragon Champion and Seto's remaining life points. However, when the magician goes to attack, Seto reveals that he suspected his grandpa would try something like this, and so had a plan in place to thwart him. He then plays his spell, Monster Replace, which lets him swap a monster on the field with one in his hand, with the Dragon Champion vanishing and Blue Eyes appearing in its place. This causes the Dark Magician's attack to backfire, with the mage being destroyed and Solomon's life points dropping down to 1700. Though as this happens, Seto's eyes are not on the field or the life point counters, but on Solomon as he scrutinizes him closely. When the proverbial dust settles, and it is Seto's turn once more, he informs the old man that he might as well give up the ghost, since it's pretty obvious he's not the real Solomon Moto. At first he didn't see it since he was so wrapped up in the fake sick head game, but after his brothers helped him clear his mind, he realized the man claiming to his grandpa duels nothing like him. Sure, he plays the same strategies, but there's no hint of the respect Solomon holds for his cards, with this guy simply throwing boss monster after boss monster at him with no concern for if they get destroyed. So now, for the sake of his grandpa's honor, he's gonna bring this imposter into the light, and he's gonna do it with the help of some friends who are near and dear to his grandpa's heart. On these words, Seto's Dark Magician emerges from its hat, and as it and Blue Eyes converge, they launch a tandem attack, which strikes Feral Imp, obliterating it and causing the duel box to overload, just as the pretender Solomon's life points hit 0. This is not the only major occurrence to happen though, as the imposter is blown off his chair by the force of this finale, and when he crashes to the ground, his veneer fades, with him being exposed as a short fat man with pink hair, which gives him the distinct appearance of a clown. Furiously, Seto demands to know who this clown is, with him grinning he has many names: Mimic, Imitator, Ventriloquist, though now he is known as an Eliminator, having been hired by Master Pegasus to remove Seto Moto from this tournament. Scowling, Seto asks why him, to which the Mimic answers that Master Pegasus desires something from his brother little Yugi, and as it stands, Seto's continued presence on the island is the most likely hindrance to the Master's plan, meaning the brothers must be separated. On this last word, Kimo makes his play, grabbing Mokuba and attempting to run, though he doesn't get far as Yugi, Joey, Taya, and Tristan all tackle the security guard to the ground. Bursting from the box, Seto wrenches Mokuba from Kimo's arms, asking if he's okay. Then when the boy says he is, Seto growls that both of Pegasus' lackeys are gonna pay dearly for trying to harm his little brothers. Unfortunately, this is only half right, as in the chaos the Eliminator flees, though truthfully no one cares, as their eyes are all locked squarely on Kimo. In a deadly whisper, Seto instructs the man with the pointed head to deliver a message to Pegasus from all of them. They're coming for him, and they're not going to stop until they've rescued Grandpa and put an end to all of the Tycoon's sick games. When the goon is gone, Seto retrieves his 3 star chips, bringing him up to 6, though he does not stay in the duel box long, as both Yugi and Joey want to find their next opponent so they can catch up. As they walk, Joey comments that there's still one thing about that duel with the ghoul that's still bothering him. How did he get an exact copy of Gramps' deck? Strolling beside him, Yugi is the one to answer, saying he was wondering that too at first, but when Seto shorted out the box, he saw something strange. All the Mimic's cards disappeared, causing him to believe they were actually holograms projected by the duel box, just like the monster holograms. Scratching his head, Joey groans that holographic cards just don't sit right with him, though offhandedly, Seto retorts that he actually could see them being a step forward for duel monsters, though he wouldn't expect a dinosaur like Pegasus to see it. An angry voice then barks that he shouldn't be talking about dinosaurs so disrespectfully, as from behind a tree, Rex Raptor comes strolling out. In an unimpressed voice, Seto asks if Rex is here to challenge him for his title, stating we've already tried that. Though with a scowl, Rex retorts that while he would like to make the national champ into Dino Chow, he's actually here to challenge his brother. Looking all surprised, Yugi asks why him, to which the Dino Duelist answers that he's going to bring about an extinction level event which will end the Moto period and begin the Age of Raptor, but to do that, he needs to wipe out both brothers, starting with the Runt. Angrily, Seto and Joey snap that Yugi's no runt, though in contrast, Yugi himself remains calm, telling his friend and brother not to get upset, since he's used to people underestimating him, and that this is his chance to prove that he can look after himself. Respecting Yugi's wishes, the two taller boys stand back, allowing Rex to lead them all to a duel box a short distance away. Immediately, Yugi notices this is a mountain field, with peaks covering both sides, and while he does not know what type of monster it favors, he can tell that ironically, both sides will be on a level playing field. Wagering 4 star chips each, Rex and Yugi then begin the duel. In an act that has become alarmingly usual by now, Yugi starts by giving himself over to the puzzle spirit, who opens the duel with his command knight in attack mode. Unfortunately, Rex isn't the regional runner-up for nothing, responding with Sword Arm of Dragon, causing an orange Stegosaurus to burst into life on the field and skewer Yugi's knight with his barbed tail. Letting out an exclamation of shock, Yugi watches his life point total drop to 1850, then begins his own turn. This time he draws Jack's knight, and so summoning it onto the field, orders it to wipe out this dinosaur. At once, the miniature knight does so, beheading the beast and bringing Rex's life points down to match Yugi's. Now it is the Dino Duelist's turn again, and he wastes no time in showing Yugi his giant Rex, with this monster soon proving itself too much for Jack's knight to handle. As a result, Yugi loses a further 100 life points, though fortunately he has a counter, bringing out his Silent Magician level 4 and using Card of Sanctity to boost its attack points to 2000, making it even with giant Rex. From the sidelines, Tristan comments that this is the closest duel he's ever seen, with the two duelists being incredibly similar in skill. However, with a grin, Joey tells his pointy-haired friend that he ain't seen nothing yet, as Yugi's about to pull out a masterclass move. Haughtily, Rex snaps back that from where he's standing, it looks like Yugi's stalling, though when he passes his turn, Seto comments that Rex isn't very bright, is he? Silent Magician gains 500 attack each time Rex draws, and what has he done since Yugi's last turn? Gasping in horror, Rex cries out to his dinosaur, but it's already too late, as the now 2500 attack Silent Magician blows Giant Rex away, and with it, reduces Rex's life points to 1350. With this resolved, Yugi ends his turn, causing Rex to draw, and Silent Magician to gain another 500 attack, making it as strong as Seto's Blue Eyes. Yugi doubts that Rex will have anything as strong as that in his deck, meaning that next turn he can bring out his strongest monster, Silent Magician level 8. However, what Yugi doesn't know is that Rex does in fact have a monster capable of toppling the Silent Magician, with that being his Red Eyes Black Dragon, which he plays in attack mode. At first this seems like an absurd play, as Red Eyes only has 2400 attack, though it is here that Rex reveals what monster type benefits from the mountain field: dragons. At once, everything makes sense, as Red Eye's power skyrockets to 3120, allowing it to destroy Silent Magician before it can begin its metamorphosis, and bring Yugi down to 1630 life points. What follows is several turns of defensive dueling from Yugi, as he is forced to throw out monsters in defense mode, only for them to be easily dispatched by Red Eyes. This is bad. Nothing in his deck is as strong as that dragon with its mountain boost, and soon he will run out of monsters, which in turn will mean he loses the duel. However, just when it seems like all hope is lost, he draws the card that just might save him, a 2-star monster with less than 500 attack points. Playing it face down defense mode like all the rest, Yugi holds his breath. The entire outcome of this duel now depends on if Rex takes his bait or not. Fortunately for Yugi, there is nothing to tip Rex off to the importance of this play, as it is the exact same one he has made for the last several turns, being that without hesitation, the Dino Duelist has his Red Eyes attack. At once, Yugi flips his monster face up, revealing it to be the old Vindictive Magician, before adding that it has a special effect. Dismissively, Rex asks if it pulls a bunny out of its hat or something, though with a determined grin, Yugi answers that it's far more impressive than that. When old Vindictive Magician is sent to the graveyard from face-down defense position, it is able to take a friend along with it, meaning Red Eyes is also about to be destroyed. Cackling maliciously, the wizard then waves its staff, causing both itself and Red Eyes to vanish in a puff of smoke, while up above, Rex's mouth falls open in shock. However, this is only short-lived, as in an attempt to maintain his bravado, Rex then sneers that little Yugi might have gotten rid of his dragon, but he's got another fearsome monster lurking in his hand, the dreaded Black Tyranno. To prove this point, he then summons the beast, with it letting out a terrifying roar as it appears. Luckily for Yugi, Rex has already had his battle phase this turn, so it cannot attack, though he warns that this is only a stay of execution, as next turn, his Tyranno is going to make a meal of the boy with the tritoned hair. Though he hates to admit it, Yugi suspects that Rex is right, since he can't think of any other card in his deck that can pull off what old Vindictive Magician just did. However, even in the direst of predicaments, he refuses to give in, placing his faith in the heart of the cards as he makes what he knows will be his final draw of the duel, for better or for worse. For a moment, there is silence as everyone awaits the outcome of this fateful draw. Then, a smile begins to crest Yugi's lips as he tells Rex he is afraid the meal will have to wait, as he's just won this duel. Furiously, Rex screams that this is impossible, though still grinning, Yugi retorts that nothing's impossible if you believe in the heart of the cards. He then plays the card he just drew, Monster Reborn, causing Red Eye's Black Dragon to return to the field, now on Yugi's side. Like with Rex, it immediately gets the field power bonus, causing the boy in the beanie to comment that this is Yugi's plan, eh? Not bad using the bonus, but Red Eye still isn't strong enough to wipe out all his life points, meaning sooner or later, he'll make a comeback. He always does. Letting out a soft chuckle, Yugi agrees that Rex is right. Red Eyes alone isn't strong enough to deplete all of Rex's remaining points, though he never said Red Eyes would be the one to do it. Sweating a little now, Rex demands to know what Yugi is planning, to which the spiky-haired youth answers that the Dino Duelist will see, as he plays polymerization, fusing the Red Eyes in his field with the Meteor Dragon in his hand to create Meteor Black Dragon. Rising into the air, the purple beast with his tail made of magma then begins manifesting a massive meteor, which it hurls at Black Tyranno. Letting out a squeal of terror, Rex orders his dino to do something, but it is already too late, as the T-Rex is soon squashed, taking all of Rex's remaining life points with it. From the side of the field, Joey taunts that he guesses it really was a meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. While rising to his feet, Yugi claims his starships, bringing him to 8. Despite being a total weasel, Rex is no cheat, accepting his loss with a grumble and slinking off towards the boat home, while Yugi reverts to normal and joins his friends. After watching the Moto Brothers duel, Joey is ready for his next match, feeling like he needs to catch up, since they both have more than half of their required starships, while he's only got a measly 2. Unfortunately for the blonde, by the time night falls, they have not been able to locate a second opponent for him, meaning he'll have to bunk down and try again in the morning. While sitting around the campfire, the team are joined by a newcomer, though a familiar one, Bakura from school, who greets them warmly and joins them by the fire as if this was always planned. For a time they all chat amiably, until Joey begins staring fixedly at one of his cards. Curiously, Bakura asks the other boy what's the matter, with Joey explaining how sometimes he likes to imagine himself as one of his monsters when he duels. Laughing a little, Seto and Taya call this a bit weird, though with a laugh of his own, Joey teases that they can't throw stones, since he's seen the way his bud looks at that blue eyes of his. And as for Taya, he ain't even gonna say what he's caught her staring at. Before an actual argument can break out, Bakura suggests a change of activity, saying why don't they all put one card representing themselves into Yugi's deck, and then he'll duel him, that way it's like he's dueling all of them. Thinking this sounds cool, the gang will pick their favorite card and entrust them to Yugi, who shuffles them into his deck and lays it on a tree stump so they can begin to play. Taking a seat across from Yugi, Bakura begins to grin, his demeanor growing sinister as he attempts to start the shadow game. Being a group of weak mortals devoid of magic, it will only take a moment for the shadows to consume them, and then he will be able to lay claim to the Millennium Puzzle. However, before the darkness can settle in, it is driven away by a pair of shining golden lights, which force Yummy Bakura to shield his eyes. At first he looks to Yugi, assuming this is an act of the puzzle, though, to his surprise, he soon identifies the source as the two brothers Seto and Mokuba. This doesn't make any sense, as this sort of light magic hasn't been employed since the days of the Nameless Pharaoh. Then he sees it, the Millennium mark upon their foreheads. This must have something to do with the wish little Yugi made on the puzzle. Very well, he will halt his assault for now, and find another way to get his hands on the puzzle later. As nothing actually happened as far as the children could tell, it is a small feat for the Spirit of the Ring to backtrack, relinquishing his hold on Bakura for now, and watching as the children all shake their heads and ask if anyone else suddenly felt lightheaded. In unison, they all confirm they did, commenting that it's strange, though there's no need to worry now that it's past, meaning they can begin their game. What follows is an entirely mundane duel between Yugi and the real Bakura, resulting in Yugi using a combo of his Silent Magician level 8, Seto's Blue Eyes, and Joey's Flame Swordsman to clinch victory. Rising to shake hands, the two boys agree that it was a fun duel and a nice change of pace from all the high-stakes matches they've been having lately, only for a scream to draw their attention. Running in the direction of the sound, the gang come across a tall man dressed in black leather with two large duel gauntlets, laughing maniacally as he stands over a young boy. Scowling, Joey demands to know what this big jerk thinks he's doing scaring a little kid like that. Though still cackling, the man replies that it's none of his business, and that unless he wants to be his next victim, he should move along. However, instead of being cowed, Joey retorts that actually he's been looking to duel someone for ages, and if it means he can put down a wannabe tough guy bully while he does it, all the better. Looking at Joey for the first time, the big man leers that he can see fire in this one's eyes. Good. He looks forward to putting it out and leaving the blonde a shattered mess, just like the worm he just beat. He then explains that his name is Panic, and he is an eliminator, causing Seto to step up and warn Joey to be careful, reminding him of how much trouble the other eliminator gave him. Grinning, Joey tells his best pal not to sweat it, since he's gonna clean this goofball's clock. Then, following Panic, he steps into a nearby duel box. When they are seated, Panic barks at Joey to lay down his starships, with the blonde wagering his 2, and Andy the Eliminator is more than capable of matching, as he snarls he looks forward to putting down such an insolent cur. He then goes first, summoning his Castle of Dark Illusions in defense mode, with a large floating citadel suddenly manifesting above the field. However, this is not the strange part, as when the castle appears, everything else disappears, being obscured in darkness as Panic's entire field goes pitch black. From inside of the field, Joey demands to know what Panic thinks he's doing turning out all the lights, though as the Eliminator's eyes gleam dangerously through the darkness, he explains that this is his castle's special ability, as now all his cards will remain hidden from view so long as it's on the field. Recognizing the disadvantage this puts him in, Joey can't help but sweat, an action that is not lost on Panic, who tauntingly asks if he's scared, since he should be. He is what goes bump in the night. He is little Joey's worst nightmare. And he's going to have the boys screaming for Mummy in just a few turns. Trying to keep his cool, Joey jokes that to reach that point, he'll have to end his turn instead of just blabbing. Though even while being flippant, he can't stop staring at Panic's ominous glowing eyes and thinking about the chill they send down his spine. Finally, Panic does concede the move, and so Joey summons his battle steer, though since he can't touch the castle, he ends his turn there. Cackling maniacally, Panic opens his turn by bringing out a monster, though with his field all blacked out, Joey doesn't have a clue what it is. All he knows is that it has large pink claws when they shoot out of the darkness to snag his steer and pull it into the gloom. A moment later, Joey hears a choked braying sound, and then his battle steer is no more, with his life points dropping to 1,720 as a result. Getting flustered, Joey next summons Axe Raider, telling it to go slice and dice that mystery monster, since he ain't gonna sit around and wait for his guys to be picked off one by one. From the sidelines, his friends yell for him not to give this command, citing how if Joey looks at the damage he took last turn, it is clear that Panic's monster has over 2,000 attack points. Unfortunately, it is already too late, as with a shriek, Axe Raider is destroyed too, causing Joey to lose more life points, now being at 1,340. Sneering sadistically, Panic tells the others not to waste their breath. Little Joey's quite literally jumping at shadows now, which means he's already won. He then summons another monster and ends his turn, goading the blonde by saying that he can't wait to see what blunder he makes next. However, after that last mistake, Joey wants to play smart, playing his Chasm of Spikes trap card face down so that next time Panic summons a monster, 1/4 of its attack will come out of Panic's life points. Feeling confident in this plan, he then summons Armored Lizard in defense mode to protect his life points and ends his turn. Unfortunately, Joey's hopes of a clever ruse are dashed a moment later, when Panic reveals one of his monsters to be the Reaper of the cards. Worriedly, Yugi tells Joey to watch out, since the Reaper can destroy spell and trap cards, though by now Joey has already figured that out, as the scythe-wielding Spectre has drifted into view and slashed at his trap, rendering it moot and leaving poor Armored Lizard vulnerable to those awful clawed hands, which pull it into the darkness, just like Battle Steer. Though Armored Lizard's destruction does not cost Joey any life points, the blonde boy is still badly shaken, burying his head in his hands and asking why he ever kidded himself into believing he could play here in the big leagues. However, before this self-doubt can escalate into a full-on pity party, a voice snaps to Joey to shut up already. Looking round, Joey sees Seto, who is fixing him with a furious glare, as he calls this attitude pathetic. Has he forgotten what he's dueling for? Shaking his head, Joey replies that he remembers he's dueling for Serenity, to which Seto bluntly states that he's right, reminding him that if he keeps acting like a coward and loses his head here, his sister will lose her sight forever. At his side, Mokuba tells his big bro that he gets he's trying to help Joey, but he doesn't have to be so mean, though in contrast, Joey retorts that actually Seto's pep talk was perfect, thanking his bud, then yelling that Joey Wheeler's back. This elicits cheers from his friends, though it seems Joey isn't done yet, as he grins that he's also figured something out. The real coward at this table is Panic. Snarling like a mad dog, Panic orders Joey to watch his tongue. Though laughing now, Joey elaborates that Panic's a total wuss, who uses tricks and lies to hide because he's got no real substance, and that like all cowardly bullies, what he fears most is being exposed. To prove this, he summons Swamp Battle Guard in attack mode, though this is not the crux of the play, as while he keeps taunting Panic, he also plays a trap card face down. Predictably, Panic in his agitated state has his clawed monster attempt to pull Swamp Battle Guard into the shadows, though with a cluck of his tongue, Joey reveals that Panic was so spooked by his talk of exposing him that he didn't even notice his trap. He then unveils his face down, with it being kunai with chain. As a result, when a fearsome clawed hand reaches out for Swamp Battle Guard, the ogre is able to use its new chain weapon to impale its hand, then pull the mystery monster into the light. Subsequently, it is revealed that Panic's monster is none other than Ryukushin Powered, who thanks to being brought into the light, loses its field power bonus. This leaves it significantly weaker than Swamp Battle Guard, meaning the Green Goliath is easily able to destroy it, or reducing Panic's life points to 1,300. Now that Panic is losing, he begins to, well, panic, as he hastily summons a new monster to replace his old one, as well as playing Chaos Shield to keep all his monsters safely within a barrier where Joey's kunai with chain can't touch them. However, instead of being stymied, Joey grins that Panic's just proving himself more of a coward than ever, since now he's cowering at the first sign of pushback. Panic. This incenses the Eliminator, who shrieks that he will not be spoken down to by some brat, before shooting a wire out of his gauntlet aimed at Joey's throat, snarling that when he wins, he'll pull it taut and see if the boy has any more witty comments. However, to Panic's shock, Joey catches it with his own gauntlet, wrapping the wire around the portion that holds his star chips and yanking it so it snaps. He then calls threats of violence another pathetic bully move, adding that it won't work on him since he knows all the tricks, because he used to be a bully just like Panic until a good pal set him straight. And speaking of good pals, he's about to expose him with a card another good pal gave him. He then plays Time Wizard, calling for a time roulette, a risky play, as with Swamp Battle Guard's attack being boosted by Kunai with Chain, everyone knows that if the dial lands on a skull, Joey will lose all his life points and be eliminated from the tournament. However, in classic Joey Wheeler fashion, he manages to luck into just the result he needs, with Time Wizard landing on a time machine and beginning his sword to age everything on the field 1,000 years. Unfortunately, when the effect ends, Panic taunts that Joey's move was for nothing, since his monsters are an eternal spirit and an unaging vampire, neither of which are affected by the passage of time. Smirking, Joey tells Panic that he thinks he might need to count again, since last he checked, the big guy had 3 monsters on the field, one of whom was a castle. You know, those things that tend to crumble with age. Letting out a shriek of abject horror, Panic looks up to see his castle in shambles, with pieces of debris plummeting down towards his side of the field. Frantically, the Eliminator commands his monsters to flee, but with his Chaos Shield still being in play, they can do no such thing, meaning as the darkness lifts, the first and last sight Joey gets of Panic's monsters is them being flattened by the Castle of Dark Illusions, and Panic taking half their combined attack points as damage, thus dropping him to 0 life points. Now it is Panic's turn to cradle his head in his hands, demanding to know how he could lose, though without a hint of pity, Joey tells him that it's because he's a bullying, cowardly slimeball. Wasn't he listening to a word he said during their duel? He then orders the Eliminator to get out of his sight, with the ghoulish man slinking off into the night, though not before snarling that one day he'll make Joey pay for this. Now that Panic is gone, the gang are finally able to get some shut-eye, and it's good that they do, as the next morning arrives in seemingly no time at all, bringing with it immense pressure, since Yugi, Joey, and Seto all know that the cutoff to enter the castle is tonight, meaning they need to find some opponents fast, or risk being eliminated by timeout. Taking off at a brisk jog, the gang soon come across a duel already in progress, and to their surprise, they know both participants. On one side is their friend, Mako Tsunami, while on the other is that creep bandit Keith. As they arrive, Keith is commenting on how fortunate it is that he's drawn another 7 complete, meaning he can power up his slot machine and wipe out Fishboy's life points. Good, or perhaps bad to his word, the bandit then does exactly this, destroying Mako's monster and ending the duel. Cackling like a hyena, Keith then scoops up his newly won star chips and places them in his gauntlet, while mockingly bidding Mako goodbye and taunting that he hopes he enjoys the ride home. Running up to the Ocean Duelist, Joey asks if it's true that he's really just been eliminated, to which Mako solemnly nods, wishing his friends luck and warning them to watch out for Keith. However, it seems Seto has no desire for such caution, demanding Keith battle him right now, though with another cackle, the American retorts there's no point, since he's already got 10 star chips, so he's heading up to the castle to wait for the playoffs. He then looks to Yugi, saying he ought to thank him, since most of those chips came from that Mai chick he left passed out near the coast, a claim which disgusts everyone, with Yugi calling him a thief. Snarkily, Keith retorts that he's just mad he didn't do it first, but since he's such a nice guy, he'll give Yugi the 2 spares he got from that Mako dweeb as his cut, since it really was a team effort. He then tosses the boy a pair of star chips and begins strolling in the direction of the castle, seemingly oblivious to the names the heroes call him, while easily sidestepping a rock Joey hurls at his back. Refusing to allow this sleaze to get away with this, the gang give chase, though in the dense forest, it's easy to lose track of their quarry. Soon, they stumble upon a cave, and so yelling there's nowhere for Keith to run, Joey charges in, with his friends following suit. Unfortunately, while they do not find Bandit Keith, the friends do find an elaborate network of tunnels, with them soon getting so lost that backtracking is no longer an option. Angrily, Taya yells this is all Joey's fault, telling him to think before running off next time. Though before the blonde can defend himself, Bakura gets everyone's attention, saying his Millennium Ring has started pointing him down a certain tunnel. Curiously, Tristan asks Bakura what he thinks it means, to which the white-haired boy answers that he theorizes the rings can point him towards other Millennium items, so most likely, it's pointing them towards the castle and Pegasus. Excitedly, Mokuba asks what they're waiting for, with the others all agreeing to let Bakura navigate. The only one who does not exhibit any form of eagerness is Yugi, who has been rather quiet since the encounter with Keith. Hanging back to check on his brother, Seto asks Yugi if he's okay, to which the spiky-haired boy explains that he's feeling a bit conflicted, not just because he didn't earn these star chips, but because of how Keith acquired them. If the spirit of the puzzle hadn't cast his spell on Mai, he never would have been able to steal them, and while he agrees Mai shouldn't have cheated in their duel, he's unsure how much he can trust an entity whose actions have such severe consequences which help out scumbags like Keith. He then looks to Seto for guidance, and speaking bluntly, the brunette replies that he's made no secret of the fact that he doesn't trust the puzzle spirit one bit, and he thinks it's unwise for Yugi to give his body over to a being whose true motives are unknown. Though ultimately, what Yugi does from here is something only he can decide, but either way, he wants him to know that he and the rest of his friends will be here to back him up. Venturing further into the cave, the team soon come across a set of double doors, and so assuming this must be the way out, they step inside, only to find a large square room with a pair of doors on the back wall and an odd table in the center. At first they mistake it for the interior of a door box, though on closer inspection, it has far too many panels and has seats at each corner, rather than the standard two facing across from each other. However, before they can ask any questions, their senses are assailed by a pair of rhyming bald men who perform an acrobatic routine before introducing themselves as Para and Dox, better known as the Paradox Brothers. They also explain that they are eliminators with a special set of rules. They duel as a pair, which means their challengers must do likewise. Smiling, Seto replies that he's game for a tag duel, with both Yugi and Joey stepping up to offer themselves as his tag partner. Smile fading as he looks at Yugi, Seto says that he hopes he understands, but he's gonna pick Joey this time, since while he has faith in his brother, there's still that issue with the puzzle spirit they discussed. Nodding, Yugi replies that he completely gets it, joining Taya, Tristan, Mokuba, and Bakura as Seto and Joey approach the table, laying down 6 and 4 star chips respectively, meaning they will each have 10 if they win. When they are all seated, the Paradox Brothers explain there are further rules this pair must know regarding this duel, for if they win, they must choose a door, with one containing freedom, while the other leaves them trapped down here forevermore. Scowling, Joey tells them to knock off the rhyming junk and talk normal, but Seto calmly explains that what the brothers are saying is that even if they win, there's still a 50% chance they'll be trapped wandering these tunnels forever. He then asks if there are any clues to the right door, with Para and Dox answering they may each ask a question, with one of them only speaking truth, while the other only speaks lies. Grinning, Joey says he's heard this riddle, telling the brothers to each tell them which door they're guarding, since the truth teller will point to his own door, while the liar will point to the other guy's door. As expected, each point to a door, with Joey informing his pal they now know Dox is the truth teller, so Seto just has to ask Dox which door leads to freedom. However, being a genius, Seto tells Joey not so fast, since both brothers said the same thing, that one is a truth teller and the other is a liar, which would be impossible for the liar to say if it was actually a true statement, meaning the only way they could both say it is if both are liars, and that claim is a lie, meant to lull them into a false sense of security. Scratching his head, Joey sighs that Seto's lost him, though with a slight grin, the brunette tells his best friend not to worry about it, just focus on the duel, and he'll focus on the riddle. With this settled, the match begins, and going first, Dox makes a big play right out of the gate, summoning his labyrinth wall and causing the entire battlefield to change, as it becomes an intricate maze. Cackling maliciously, the brothers then explain they're playing a whole new game now, as monsters must traverse the maze to battle, moving a number of squares equal to their star level. Making it to the other side of the maze is one of the ways the challengers can win, with the other being they deplete all of one of their opponent's life points, though in turn, if either Joey or Seto lose all their life points, it's game over for their team, and they will be banished to wander these catacombs forever. From his seat, Joey can't help but sweat a little. Not only is there this big door decision weighing on him, but now it turns out that if he loses, he'll be dragging his best pal down with him. It's a lot of pressure. However, when he looks over at Seto, he sees his buddy looking supremely confident, urging Joey to make his move since it's his turn. Laughing awkwardly that he'd forgotten that in the midst of all his worrying, Joey takes his turn, summoning Garuzzi's and having it march 5 squares into the maze. Now it is Para's turn. Without hesitation, he plays a face down, then ends his turn, allowing Seto to go. Figuring they have no choice but to explore the maze, Seto summons his Horn Imp, with the little devil moving 4 squares to stand behind Garuzzi's. Following this is Dox, and with it comes the first clash of the duel, as he plays Dungeon Worm. Unlike other monsters, Dungeon Worm is capable of burrowing beneath the maze, allowing it to pop up anywhere without warning. In this case, Dox has it appear beneath Horn Imp, rising up from beneath the imp and gobbling it up in one bite. Then, a moment later it is gone, returning to its burrow and leaving Seto with 1500 life points. Wanting to avenge Seto's monster, Joey summons Guilty of the Night, who charges up to the edge of the worm's hole and sends a homing spell down after the beast, destroying it and costing Dox 50 life points. Then for good measure, he has Garuzzi's advanced 5 spaces, scouting out more of the terrain for him and Seto. Now it is back to Para's turn, and he at last summons a monster, with him choosing to bring out the fearsome-looking Labyrinth Tank, which is capable of advancing a whopping 7 spaces as it begins to close in on Garuzzi's. Fortunately, Seto has something even more fearsome in his arsenal, summoning Dark Magician and having it move 7 spaces as well. Whether due to there being a hole in the floor from Dungeon Worm, or because this is another act of subtle defiance from the mage, Dark Magician does not take the same path as Guilty and Garuzzi's, instead taking a slightly alternate route, which for now positions it away from its allies. However, this is not Seto's only play, as before ending his turn, he lays a card face down in his spell and trap zone, having a feeling it will come in handy later. Returning to the Paradox Brothers, Dox next summons Monster Tamer and advances it 5 squares, putting it a short way behind Labyrinth Tank. This is a very intentional decision, as it allows the Tamer to use its special ability, cracking its whip and granting Dox control over Para's tank. As a result, the tank is able to advance another 7 spaces, bringing it closer to the challenger's side, and making it the biggest threat on the board. In response to this, Joey brings Guilty up to stand behind Garuzi's, wanting to keep his guys close, before telling Garuzi's to advance and do a little more scouting. Unfortunately, the only place Garuzi's is about to be scouting is the graveyard, as the very next tile Blizzard steps on is a trap, with Para revealing his card from the first turn to be none other than Jiraigomo. At once, the colossal spider bursts from the ground, wrapping its many spear-like appendages around Garuzi's and biting down on its head, dealing 500 damage to Joey and leaving him 1 monster poorer. Then, to make matters worse, it is now time for Para's turn, with him telling Jiraigomo to destroy Guilty at 2, though before the spider can strike twice, Seto reveals his own face down to be Mystic Box. This allows him to swap Dark Magician and Jiraigomo's positions on the board, while also destroying the spider, as swords rain down from the sky to impale the box that has been placed inside. Wanting to keep the momentum up, Seto then uses his own turn to have Dark Magician advance 3 spaces and wipe out Para's other monster, Labyrinth Tank, reducing his life points to 1900 and marking the first foray into the Paradox Brothers' side of the board. In the face of this, there is little Dox can do, with his best play being to send his Monster Tamer on a detour in the hope of avoiding Dark Magician and flanking one of Joey's monsters. Speaking of Joey, it is his turn now, with the blonde summoning Flame Swordsman and bringing up 5 spaces to consolidate his forces and get as close to Guilty as possible, before ending his turn and allowing Para to go again. For his turn, Para plays a box, with Joey asking what gives, though from behind him, Yugi tells his friend and brother to watch out, since that's Sangha of the Thunder, 1/3 of the terrifying Gate Guardian, a monster in the class of Exodia. With a cackle, Para claims this is quite right, saying once they have all 3 pieces, they will be nigh on invincible. However, instead of looking worried, Seto coolly retorts that monsters such as the Gate Guardian have a crippling weakness. Remove 1 piece, and the whole thing topples. To this end, he advances his Dark Magician, having it snuff out Dox's Monster Tamer and drop the Bald Man to 1250 life points, before positioning the wizard so that next turn it can destroy Sangha, declaring the Gate Guardian will not be built. Defiantly, Dox taunts the Brenner as getting ahead of himself, as he plays a spell card called Spellbook Organization, which allows him to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and rearrange them in any order he wants. As he does this, he laughingly informs his brother that he has stacked the deck, so that he will draw Suijin next turn and Kazujin the turn after, a fact which makes Para laugh too, stating their victory is assured. Growling, Joey retorts they've still got to get through him and Seto as he draws for his turn. Seeing that he has gotten Grave Robber, the blonde decides to play it face down for later. Then seeing no other play, he advances his squad as far as they're able, figuring that by sticking with Seto's Dark Magician, they will have strength in numbers. Unfortunately, this plays right into Para's hand, rather literally, as he reveals a spell from his hand called Magical Labyrinth, which allows him to change the layout of the maze to whatever he wants. As a result, the path leading to Sangha is immediately cut off, though to make matters worse, a new set of walls rise up, trapping Seto and Joey's monsters in a 6x6 box with no way out. Grinning, Para then explains this will keep these brats contained until they can finish construction of their Gate Guardian. Unsurprisingly, Seto has no desire to let this come to pass, and so pulling out the big guns, he summons his Blue Eyes, commanding it to fly over the maze and blast Sangha from above. However, here both Para and Dox begin to cackle, informing Seto that the maze is a no-fly zone, meaning Blue Eyes is useless and he's just wasted one of his few remaining turns. Returning to Dox, he summons Suijin's casket as promised, leering that next turn he'll finish creating their ultimate monster, and then they'll destroy all the challenger's monsters and win the duel in one fell swoop. Scowling, Joey retorts that wasn't he the guy who told Seto not to get ahead of himself? Though still with that smirk, Dox tells Joey that if he has a plan to prove him wrong, then by all means to show it. Letting his emotions get the better of him, Joey growls that nobody traps Joey Will like a rat, and so orders Guilty to blow a hole in the wall so they can all escape. Unfortunately, this is a rather ill-fated decision, as when the Magical Knight uses his Soul Spear Assault, the spell bounces back, striking Guilty and destroying him instead. Laughing heartily, Para then reminds Joey that the Labyrinth is technically a monster, with 3,000 defense points, meaning that in his ignorance, he's just reduced his own life points to 350, and his team's chance of victory to 0. Para then passes his own turn, seeing no point in stalling, as soon the Gate Guardian will arise, though all the same he tells Seto to make his last futile move so that he and his brother can end things. However, to the Paradox Brothers' surprise, Seto meets their eyes with confidence, saying that actually he and Joey are the ones who will end things, as by the end of this turn, he will have assured the brothers' defeat. Furiously, the bald men call this a lie, though with a grin, Seto tells them to wait and see as he once again orders Blue Eyes to attack. Sighing with relief, Dox comments that Seto must have forgotten dragons can't enter the maze. Though still sure of himself, Seto retorts that he doesn't have to enter it, as like they said, the maze itself is a monster, so he's attacking it. At once, Blue Eyes lets off a powerful white lightning attack, with the blast striking the maze's exterior and causing it to crumble. All throughout the field, the maze begins to collapse, with the result being not only are Seto and Joey's monsters freed from their prison, but the walls that had been put in place to protect Sunga and Suijin are also gone. Though this comes at the cost of Blue Eyes also falling, it allows Seto to have his Dark Magician make good on its promise and destroy Suijin's casket, rendering the Gate Guardian unattainable. This leaves the brothers in a panic, with Dox uselessly playing Kazujin's casket, though both brothers know this is futile as the turn order rolls around to Joey. Looking his best friend in the eye, Seto tells him that it's all up to him now, a claim which makes Joey grin, as he promises his bud that he won't let him down. He then begins his finishing combo, starting by playing Salamandra to power up Flame Swordsman so he can destroy Kazujin from a distance. Then when the Casket of Wind is gone, he reveals his face-down Grave Robber, using it to revive Monster Tamer. This allows him to take control of Dark Magician, and with Seto's blessing, he has it attack again, destroying Sunga and granting his team victory, as they have now officially made it through the maze, with their opponents having no more monsters to stop them. For a moment, Para and Doc stare on in disbelief, unable to comprehend how they have lost, though when Joey and Seto grab their starships, each now having 10, the brothers are forced to look up. Hoping to regain some modicum of control, they tell the boys that even though they've won the duel, there's still the matter of the doors, reminding them that if they choose wrong, they'll be trapped roaming these tunnels forever. Truthfully, neither Seto nor Joey are sure which door to choose, having hoped something would become clearer during the duel, though to their surprise, this is when Yugi speaks up, asking if he can choose, since he's pretty sure he knows the answer. Having complete faith in Yugi, Seto and Joey agree without hesitation, and so Yugi begins marking up 2 coins before placing one in each hand, saying that one is Para's mark while the other is Dox's, and whichever coin he keeps clutched in his hand will be the door they choose. Everyone watches with bated breath as Yugi then steps up, holding out his 2 clenched fists, before flipping one up to reveal the Dox coin. Unable to help themselves, the brothers gloat that Yugi chose wrong, as Dox's door was the path to salvation, though since they chose Para's, they must now wander an endless maze for all time. However, here it is Yugi's turn to grin, saying that actually, they never saw his choice, as he shows the other coin to also carry Dox's mark. He then explains that during the duel, he figured out the brothers can change which door leads to the castle, just like they could change the maze, so they would have always made them choose wrong. To protect from this, he decided to play a little trick of his own, and since they've already admitted Dox's door is right and his chosen coin was the second Dox coin, he technically chose right, meaning they must let them go free. Gritting their teeth, the Bald brothers can see that this is true, opening Dox's door and allowing them to step once more into daylight. From here it is only a short walk up to Pegasus' castle, and as Yugi, Joey and Seto all present their 10 starships to gain entry, they all share the same thought, that in spite of all they've gone through to get here, the real challenge begins now. Stepping into the castle, our heroes can't help but admire the opulence, even if it is somewhat marred by the sight of Bandit Keith, sprawled out on a couch as if he owns the place. Sardonically toasting them with an expensive-looking glass, Keith snarks that he was starting to wonder when the other finalists would show up, though he wasn't expecting it to be little Seto and his Pipsqueak posse. Making a fist, Joey growls that Keith will see who's a Pipsqueak when he gets his hands on him, with it taking Tristan and Bakura to hold their blonde friend back. Still smirking, Keith calls Joey nothing but a little puppy dog, all bark and no bite, before looking at the Murdo brothers, taunting that he's looking forward to putting Seto in his place after their last duel. Well, as for Yugi, he's not even worth his time, since everyone knows he only got here by riding his bro's coattails. Now it looks like Seto wants to punch Keith, though before he can indulge this impulse, a man in a suit and jacket enters the antechamber, introducing himself as Croquet, and informing the finalists and their friends that with them all present, Master Pegasus would like to greet them all. Scowl twisting his scruffy face, Keith scoffs that he couldn't care less what that fop Pegasus has to say, rudely instructing the man to instead of the kitchen send up a burger, since he's gotten good and comfy on this couch, and doesn't intend to leave it until his first duel. In a voice of trained politeness, Croquet replies that Keith is free to skip the opening remarks if he so chooses, though it would be wise to attend, as this will be the one and only time Master Pegasus explains the rules of the finals, including the prizes the winner may receive. This catches everyone's attention, though for very different reasons, with the 4 finalists along with Taya, Tristan, Bakura, and Mokuba converging on the viewing gallery balcony across from Pegasus' throne. In his effete voice, Pegasus just greets his guests, welcoming them to his castle, and more importantly to the playoffs of the Duelist Kingdom tournament. He then explains the finals will be a series of single elimination duels, in which each finalist must present either a Glory of the King's Hand or Glory of the King's opposite hand card to be allowed to participate. Depending on which they choose, the winner of these playoffs will either receive the $3 million cash prize, or a chance to duel Pegasus himself in one all-or-nothing showdown for the right to make any request of him, as well as the title of King of Games. Though should they lose this bout, they will be forced to pay with their very soul. At this pronouncement, both Yugi and Seto lock eyes, knowing that in spite of the risks involved, this is what they will have to do if they wish to rescue their grandpa. While beside them, Joey and Keith sweat drop, since neither of them entered the tournament legally, meaning they don't have the entry cards. Luckily, Seto is there to bail his best friend out, giving him his Glory of the King's Hand, causing Joey to tear up as he promises to never forget this. Smiling softly, Seto tells him not to squander it, with Joey nodding as he states that he'll use this card to go all the way, for serenity's sake. After this opening ceremony comes the welcome dinner, with the soup course revealing who will be dueling who in the first round, as each participant finds a replica of the Millennium Eye in their meal, which carries either a letter A or B to determine which match they'll partake in. Opening his up, Yugi finds that he's in round A, while both Seto and Joey are in round B. This means they'll be facing each other, while he'll be facing Keith. Having pulled out his own slip of paper, Keith cackles this tournament will be easier than he thought if he's clobbering the shrimp first. Standing his ground, Yugi tells the American not to be so sure, since the duel hasn't even begun. Though with a sneer, Keith tells Yugi to dream on, since he's a regional champ and intercontinental finalist, while the boy is just some punk kid. He then turns away from his opponent, the dismissal obvious, while a little further down the table, Seto and Joey stare at each other. Though they had both always known it could come to this, to be facing off so early feels surreal, with neither quite knowing how to articulate their complicated feelings. Finally, Joey breaks the silence, sticking out a hand to Seto and saying may the best duelist win, a claim the Brennan is happy to agree with, even if you can feel some misgivings brewing. A little later, everyone retires to their rooms, and while Joey and most of the others are able to sleep without issue, Yugi cannot, his mind firmly on tomorrow's duel, and more importantly, on whether he should allow himself to draw on the power of the puzzle spirit. Having similar sleeping problems, Seto decides to check in on his brother, being unsurprised to see him still awake, and when he hears what's on his mind, he takes a seat beside him, so they can work through this problem together, like they did the Millennium Puzzle as kids. However, as soon as Seto's hand touches the puzzle, something strange happens. The floor at the far side of Yugi's guest room begins to warp and ripple, with a man clad in a turban and flowing robes rising from the distortion. Suspecting this is another one of Pegasus's tricks, Seto orders this man to explain himself, with the newcomer introducing himself as Shadi, before stating that he was summoned here by disturbances coming from the Millennium Puzzle which he must investigate. Still suspicious, Seto rises to stand between his brother and Shadi, barking that he's not going anywhere near the puzzle, since he's probably just another goon sent here to steal it. Chuckling softly, Shadi sighs that Seto always was so protective of the Pharaoh, a claim which only further baffles Seto, though not as much as when Shadi quite literally walks through him, before raising his Ankh necklace and pressing it against the puzzle. Demanding answers now, Seto instinctively grabs the intruder's shoulder, finding it strangely solid, though this is hardly the biggest oddity to occur, as a moment later, he feels a jerk behind his navel as his spirit is sucked inside the puzzle, along with Shadi's. Landing on his front, Seto groggily asks where Shadi has taken him, with the robed man calmly replying they are within the Millennium Puzzle to investigate the disturbances he previously stated. He then proceeds to walk away, forcing Seto to leap up and follow him, demanding more information since these vague references to this so-called disturbance tells him nothing. Still impassive, Shadi elaborates, expositing how there are 7 Millennium items, 3 of light, 3 of darkness, and 1 that contains both and is meant to maintain the balance between them, with that being the puzzle. As of late, that balance has been upset, and as the keeper of the Millennium Scale and Key, is up to him to find the source and correct the issue. Coldly, Seto states that he can tell Shadi the issue. It's the spirit who keeps inhabiting Yugi's body, adding he always knew that he was trouble. However, here Shadi chuckles once more, replying that actually he is the embodiment of light within the puzzle, though all the same, it would be worth paying him a visit, since if the shadows have begun to plague him, that would explain the imbalance. Wanting to see this for himself, Seto stays close to Shadi, following along as the turban-clad spirit begins navigating the bizarre layout of the puzzle's interior. More than once, the pair find themselves entering doors only to jump back out, as seemingly lethal traps are triggered, with Seto commenting these hardly seem like something an embodiment of light would create. Unfortunately, this distraction prevents Shadi from noticing the next trap, with the floor collapsing beneath the two of them and almost sending them tumbling into a bottomless abyss. Thankfully, at the last second, Seto feels a hand wrap around his, and looking up sees Yugi, with the two brothers giving each other relieved smiles at being reunited. Working together, they manage to pull themselves and Shadi back up, with the ghost giving his thanks, while Seto recounts what he's learned about the puzzle spirit. Despite his misgivings, Yugi is more inclined than Seto to believe the spirit is good, and so agrees to join their band as they seek him out. However, it seems there will not be a long journey, since as if reacting to Yugi's faith and pure heart, a door opens in the distance, billowing light. Noting that it seems the spirit's partner has led them to him, Shadi, followed by the boys, steps through the door, and as expected, there stands the puzzle spirit. Genuflecting, Shadi addresses the spirit as "my king," causing puzzlement to cross everyone's faces, as the spirit apologetically states that he has lost his memories, and so does not know who this man is, or why he called him a king. Looking pleased, Shadi answers the spirit is that of an ancient pharaoh who ruled Egypt 5,000 years ago, and who gave up his memories for the good of the world. Eager curiosity on his face, the pharaoh implores Shadi to tell him more, but with a sigh, the other spirit replies that he cannot, as it is not his destiny. All he can do is ascertain whether the pharaoh's spirit has fallen to darkness. Nodding stoically, the pharaoh tells Shadi to do what he must, with the man pulling a set of scales from beneath his robes which he holds up in front of the pharaoh. Having read about the scales of Anubis in his research, Seto watches this carefully, though to his surprise, the scales only tip slightly, indicating that for the most part, the pharaoh is a pure soul like Shadi had said. However, in contrast, Shadi looks deeply troubled, stating that Seto was right, and this is the source of the disturbance. He then looks back to the pharaoh, informing him that it seems his heart has been touched by darkness, though it is not too late, as right now, it is only a seed which can be burnt away, through kindness, trust, and friendship. Nonetheless, even a seed can grow into something monstrous if untended, so he urges his king to be careful, lest he become as great a threat as the one he clashed with so long ago. With these enigmatic words, Yugi, Seto, and Shadi find themselves back in Yugi's room. Nodding to the brothers, Shadi then departs, calling his work done, while even Seto admits that he needs to lie down after that ordeal. He then bids Yugi goodnight, his tone suggesting that even after Shadi's claims, he is not entirely sure the pharaoh is good, though perhaps he is also not as convinced that he is evil as he once was. This leaves just Yugi, at least that is what the boy thinks, until he sees another figure fade into view, the spirit of the pharaoh now able to appear in a spectral form outside Yugi's body. This is obviously just as new to the spirit as it is to Yugi, though both welcome this development, as it allows them to talk face to face like they did in the puzzle. Taking a seat on the bed, the pharaoh is the first to speak, wanting to clear the air by apologizing for his overreaction at the end of the duel with Mai, and promising that if Yugi can trust him, he will never cross that line again. Sitting beside him, Yugi smiles as he corrects that they will never cross that line again, since as partners, the responsibility lies with both of them to stay on the right path, and maintain that spiritual balance Shadi was talking about. Nodding stoically, the pharaoh agrees, calling Yugi wise beyond his years, before promising that in turn for Yugi's trust, he will lend the boy all his skill and help him save his grandpa, stating that he can count on him completely. Smilingly growing, Yugi replies that he already knows that, meaning all that's left to do now is plan their strategy for tomorrow, a claim the pharaoh affirms, with the pair quickly setting to work, bolstered by this new stage of their union. The following morning, everyone reunites on the balcony to watch the first match, with it being Yugi versus Keith. However, it seems that Keith isn't even willing to pay Yugi the courtesy of meeting him in the duel box, instead lounging on the same couch from yesterday, which he has had brought into the contestant waiting area. Curiously, Croquet asks if Keith intends to forfeit, though the bandit shrugs that he'll duel, but first he wants to see whether little Yugi's got one of those glory cards to compete, accusing the boy of being a stowaway, since he doubts Pegasus would invite such a nobody. Smiling serenely, Yugi says he's got his card right here, showing off his Glory of the King's opposite hand, and causing Keith to blanch, since he had snuck in and stolen Yugi's Glory of the King's hand the night before, though he hadn't bothered with the other one, unable to conceive of a world where someone would be dueling for anything other than titles and prize money. Now it seems that short-sightedness has come back to bite him, with Keith having to flash his stolen card and make his way up to the duel box where Yugi is waiting for him. On Pegasus' call, Yugi and the Pharaoh merge their consciousnesses, while the American takes the first move for himself, summoning Gatekeeper and juring at his opponent to beat beat that if he can. For a moment, Yugi almost falls for Keith's trap, his hand on his Magician's Valkyria card, before he remembers that machine monsters are immune to magical attacks. This certainly makes things tricky, since a large portion of his deck is spellcasters, including his Silent Magician level 8, though not impossible, as with a flourish, he brings forth his Jax Knight instead, who materializes on the table, then on Yugi's cry, slices Gatekeeper in half, dropping Keith to 1600 life points. Gritting his teeth, Banded Keith responds by setting a card in face-down defense mode, and when Yugi is able to go again, he has his knight attack that too. However, it seems this is a mistake, with the face-down monster being none other than Blast Sphere, who latches onto Jack's knight and detonates when Keith passes his turn, dropping Yugi to 1000 life points. Briefly, the loss of half his life points in one move sends Yugi into a panic, though when he feels the comforting presence of the Pharaoh beside him, he calms himself, returning his focus to the duel and playing Dawn Knight in defense mode, before ending his turn. Smirking now, Keith brings out his slot machine, calling it the last monster Yugi will ever see, as with a brain cackle, he has his machine destroy Dawn Knight, before laying down a face down and allowing Yugi to go again. Despite this setback, the fusion of Yugi and the Pharaoh remains calm this time, warning Keith to save his breath as he plays Magician's Valkyria in face-up defense position, along with a face-down trap. However, Keith pays this latter card no mind, attacking without hesitation, only for Yugi to reveal his Castle Walls trap, stating that even if his spellcasters can't attack Keith, there are still other ways they can hurt him. At once, a fortress rises up around Valkyria, shielding her, then as Slot Machine's attack hits it, it begins to crumble, with the stone striking the machine and dropping the American to 1300 life points, forcing him to end his turn. Now it is Yugi's move again, and refusing to waste the chance he's been given, he summons his Guardian of the Order in attack mode, with the fearsome Warrior of Light making short work of Slot Machine, and with it, another chunk of Keith's life points, leaving him with only 800, and putting Yugi in the lead. However, now it is time for Keith to spring a trap, revealing he previously played Time Machine, which he used to revive Slot Machine. Then, to ensure a repeat of last turn does not occur, he pulls a 7 completed from his wristband, which he activates to power up Slot Machine and destroy Guardian of the Aura, leaving Yugi also on 800 life points. Up in the gallery, Yugi's friends tell him not to give up, that is except for Seto, who remains oddly quiet as he replays that last turn in his head. If Keith had a 7 completed already in his hand, why didn't he use it earlier to counter Yugi's castle wall? It's very unlike the man, and more than that, the timing of that draw seems awfully convenient, giving Seto a hunch that Keith hasn't given up his cheating ways, despite the outcome of their duel back in the Intercontinental Championship. Not wanting to let that swine swindle his little brother, Seto decides to get a closer look at the action, while inside the duel box, Yugi sets Queen's Knight in a face-down card in his spell and trap zone. By now the cheering from Yugi's friends has reached a fever pitch, with Keith finally snapping at them to cram it, since their whole friendship routine makes him want to puke. He then adds that in Duel Monsters, just like in life, it's every man for himself, with the winners being those who recognize this and claw their way to the top through whatever means are necessary, while the suckers let friendship and other garbage drag them down. He then gestures to his slot machine as proof, calling it one exceptional monster who stands above Yugi's gang of weaklings, before having it destroy Valkyria, with a promise to do likewise to his face-down monster next turn. In the face of a 2700 attack point monster, things look rather dire, though in spite of this, Yugi actually cracks a smile, telling Keith that he has it backwards. Friends don't drag a duelist down, they push them up higher than they could ever reach alone. He then proves this by summoning King's Knight and flipping Queen's Knight into attack mode, stating these two monsters are loyal friends and comrades who will go to any lengths for each other, just like him and his friends. Feigning a yawn, Keith tells the boy to stop blabbing, since he came here to win some prize money, not get a lecture on friendship. But in a determined voice, Yugi continues, stating he wasn't finished, as he reveals his face-down trap to be Court of Cards. At once, Jack's Knight returns to the field, with Yugi elaborating that these three great friends will even return from the afterlife to help each other out, and when they are together, there's no limit to what they can do. He then plays one last card, Polymerization, with its powerful magic fusing King's Knight, Queen's Knight, and Jack's Knight to create Arcana Knight Joker, who manifests itself as a testament to the power of friendship. Then, as if it were attacking the very spirit of Keith's ideology, Joker raises its sword to cut Slot Machine in half. Briefly, Keith reaches for one of the 7 completed in his wristband, though stops himself when he realizes that he'd need all 3 to stop this thing, and there's no way he could pull out the last 2 at once without Pegasus getting wise to his game. And so it is that when Arcana Knight Joker brings down its blade, it is without opposition, bringing an end not only to Slot Machine, but to Bandit Keith's dirty Duelist Kingdom run. From his throne, Pegasus applauds this upset, grinning he never had any doubt Yugi Boy could beat Bandit Keith. While down in the box, Keith stares at the playing field in disbelief, demanding to know how he, a national champ, could lose to some amateur. From outside the box, Seto tells Keith that it's because Yugi duels with honor and believes in the heart of the cards, while Keith is just a prize-hunting hyena, so this outcome was inevitable, even with the Americans' attempt to cheat. Chuckling, Pegasus comments that it appears he's not the only one with sharp eyes, though now is hardly the time to be laughing, as Keith shocks everyone by pulling a gun, the disgrace of being defeated by two of the Moto brothers having seemingly driven him mad. Frothing at the mouth like a feral dog, the bandit bellows that he's taking the prize money, and if anyone tries to stop him, little Yugi's gonna get it. At once, everyone freezes, though in his head, Yugi hears the voice of the Pharaoh, stating that he could use his power to stop Keith, but he will only do so if Yugi wills it. Hearing the genuineness in his tone, and the dedication to keeping his promise, Yugi can't help but smile a little, causing Keith to bark at the boy asking what's so funny. However, before Yugi can answer, or even make his mind up about the Pharaoh's offer, Pegasus speaks up, saying Keith is, taunting the American thinks he's oh so scary and tough, but he's really nothing more than a washed up old prize king, and it's high time someone got rid of him, since he's made quite a nuisance of himself. Then, without another word, Pegasus' Millennium Eye flashes, briefly blinding everyone, though doing nothing to mask the sound of Keith's horrified and anguished screams as they fill the room. When the hero's eyesight returns, they see no trace of the bandit, with him seemingly having vanished into thin air, a fact which sends a shiver down everyone's spines, that is except for Pegasus, who merely titters once more. However, it seems the Duel Monster's creator is not done speaking, as he now turns his gaze on Yugi, chiding that he is either woefully ignorant of the full extent of his shadow magic, or else unwilling to use it. Either way, that won't be an issue for much longer, as soon he will take the puzzle from him, and send him to the same place he sent Keith. With this grim pronouncement, the second match begins with Joey and Seto facing off for the right to duel Yugi in the finals. Taking the first move, Seto begins defensively, setting a monster in face-down defense mode then ending his turn. Figuring Seto must have nothing good if he's starting on the defense, Joey decides to go in guns blazing, or rather, swords blazing, as he summons Flame Swordsman and tells it to attack with Flaming Sword of Battle. Letting out a battle cry, Flame Swordsman slashes the mystery monster, only for it to be revealed as Mystical Elf, whose 2,000 defense points cause Joey to lose 200 life points. Grabbing his head in frustration, Joey groans that he can't believe he fell for the oldest trick in the book, though in a calming voice, Seto tells his best friend not to lose his head, reminding him to focus on the duel and think through his next move, since he's faced bigger threats than this before. He then sets another monster and ends his turn, bringing it back to Joey, who takes Seto's words to heart as he plays shield and sword, swapping every monster's attack and defense and turning Mystical Elf from a defensive juggernaut into a weakling. Capitalizing on this, Joey then has Flame Swordsman incinerate the elf, with Seto praising the move as a well-played combo, before starting his own turn and flipping his set monster into face-up attack mode, revealing it to be Curse of Dragon. Shrieking fiercely, the dragon wastes no time in destroying Flame Swordsman, though keeping cool like Seto told him, Joey congratulates his buddy on this small victory, promising he'll get him back for it later. He then summons Battle Warrior in face-up defense mode, chuckling that it might have to be much later, as right now he doesn't have any monsters who can beat that Curse of Dragon, so for now he'll focus on protecting his life points, while also playing one card face down. Nodding approvingly, Seto calls this all strategically sound dueling, though he's afraid it won't protect Battle Warrior from his Curse of Dragon, as he commands his Drake to destroy the blue-skinned brawler. However, here something shocking happens, as when Curse of Dragon advances on Battle Warrior, it suddenly falls out of the sky, finding itself impaled in a spiked pit trap, as Joey reveals his face-down card to be Chasm of Spikes. He then adds with a chuckle that he only said he didn't have any monsters who could destroy Curse of Dragon. While across from him, Seto gives a conceding nod, putting his monster into the graveyard and watching his life points drop to 1500 due to the trap's effect. Up in the viewing gallery, Tristan whoops, claiming that he can't believe Joey's actually in the lead, having 100 more life points than Seto, though beside him, Tam uses that she can't either, since Seto should have easily been able to see through that trap. Worriedly, Mokuba asks what Taya's getting at, to which the brunette answers that from the way he's been dueling, she wonders if part of Seto wants Joey to win as well, since while Joey's been dueling his very best all match, Seto seems to be treating this like one of the friendly duels he and Joey used to have back home, with him even coaching Joey when he's made mistakes. Defiantly, Mokuba protests that Seto would never throw a duel, to which Taya agrees, saying he'd never do it consciously, but he might not even realize he's doing it, since he's caught in a conflict between his desire to save his grandpa and his desire to help his best friend. Nodding sagely, Bakura adds that this internal conflict is probably made worse by the fact that it was Seto himself who taught Joey to duel, and encouraged him to enter the tournament to save his sister in the first place, meaning it must be doubly hard to be the person who must now potentially crush that hope, and with it all of Joey's hard work up to this point. Sighing deeply, Mokuba curses the unfairness of this tournament, saying that he wishes there was a way his brothers and Joey could all get what they want. But shaking his head, Bakura states that life doesn't work that way, meaning unless Seto gets his head in the game and duels like Joey's been, he's gonna lose his chance to save his grandpa. Speaking of Joey, it is his turn now, and he plays Baby Dragon in attack mode, before ending his turn and allowing Seto to bring out his Griffor, who destroys Battle Warrior, though inflicts no battle damage due to it being in defense mode. Returning to Joey, he plays Time Wizard, and without hesitation activates Time Roulette, proving once again that he's willing to risk it all for his sister's sake. This devotion is repaid by success, as when the needle lands on a time machine, a temporal vortex opens up, transforming Baby Dragon into Thousand Dragon, who has more than enough power to destroy Griffor with a noxious nostril gust, dropping Seto to 300 life points. Smiling softly, Seto praises Joey for this, but instead of a grin, Seto is met with a scowl, as the blonde asks what the other boy thinks he's doing, growling that the real Seto should have been able to come up with 100 ways to beat that play. Briefly, Seto attempts to protest, though Joey won't hear a word of it, stating the brunette's holding back, meaning either he thinks so little of him as a duelist that he doesn't feel the need to duel seriously, or else something's going on in that head of his that's causing him to be distracted. So which is it? Letting out a sigh, Seto admits that he's struggling to put his heart in the duel, knowing what him winning would cost Joey. With a disgusted noise, Joey retorts that letting him win wouldn't be doing him any favors either, since even if Yugi threw their match too, Pegasus wouldn't, meaning all three of them would end up losing. Nah, for this to mean anything, he's got to earn it, which means facing Seto at his best, so if the brunette really respects him as a duelist and a rival, then he should go all out like he's been doing, and no matter who wins, they'll still be best pals at the end. Got it? Looking bashful, Seto nods that yeah, he gets it, apologizing for his disrespect up until now, and thanking his best friend for telling him just what he needed to hear. Flashing a thumbs up, Joey grins that after hearing about a million of Seto's pep talks, it's about time he came up with one of his own, to which Seto returns the smile, declaring that it's time to duel, as he begins his turn. Wanting to prove that he's not pulling any punches, the national champ comes out swinging, laying a face down before calling forth one of his heaviest hitters in Summon's Skull. Letting out its fiendish screech, the lightning demon appears on the field, then with a flick of its wrist, it electrocutes Thousand Dragon, destroying it and taking another chunk from Joey's life points. Grinning that this is what he's been looking for, Joey retaliates in kind, bringing out Guilty of the Night in attack mode, while also playing Kunai with Chain face down. As expected, Seto attacks into this, allowing Joey to play his trap and force Summon Skull into defense mode, though to the blonde's horror, when Guiltier, now 500 attack points stronger, goes to finish the fiend off, Seto activates his own trap, stating that with his intimate knowledge of Joey's deck, he knew his friend's face down could only be one of three cards: Grave Robber, Salamandra, or Kunai with Chain, meaning it would either be something that couldn't hurt him, or a trap he could safely spring, thanks to having this on his field. He then reveals his trap to be Mirror Force, resulting in Guilty's attack with the Kunai bouncing off an invisible wall and striking the knight in the chest instead, much to Joey's chagrin, as his life points drop to 200. While Seto isn't doing much better with 300, it is now his turn, with him using it to return Summon Skull to attack mode, before ending his turn, having little else he can do at the moment. Sweating a little as he stares into the piercing green eyes of Summon Skull, Joey realizes he has nothing that can beat the skull. However, he does have Garuzis, who he equips with Salamandra, creating a stalemate, with both monsters now having 2500 attack points, meaning any clash would simply result in mutually assured destruction. Feeling his grin coming back, Joey comments that his bud's gotta be pretty proud of him, going from a total rookie to being able to stand toe-to-toe with the best duelist in the country, to which Seto agrees that he is indeed very proud of Joey, admitting he's played excellently this whole duel, and that even with all his skills, he, Seto, has no way out of Joey's deadlock. As a result, he ends his turn after simply laying a face down, bringing it back to Joey, who states that he never would have gotten this far without Seto, so it's only appropriate he's about to win this duel with his help. He then reveals his Grave Robber, which he uses to bring back Seto's mystical elf, before activating her effect, which allows her to transfer her attack points to Garuzis, giving the lizard enough to destroy Summon Skull and win the duel in one fell swoop. Barely able to contain his excitement at actually being about to beat the best duelist he knows, Joey calls for a flaming axe attack, while up above, Mokuba cries out for Seto. However, just before Garuzis can land its hit, Seto shows off the card he played last turn, with it being Spellbinding Circle. As a result, the warrior lizard is stopped in its tracks, while the magic of the circle drains most of its newfound strength, bringing it back down to 2600 attack points. Now it is Seto's turn once more, and trusting in his deck to give him the one card strong enough to destroy the imprisoned Garuzis, he draws and is met by a flash of blue. Knowing that he is just the card he needs, Seto summons the Blue Eyes White Dragon, basking in its glory as it takes to the field, while across from him, Joey slumps slightly in his seat, knowing that defeat is at hand. Recognizing his best friend's despondence, Seto tells him to keep his chin up, since he had him on the ropes throughout this duel, even forcing him to bring out his very best monster to win, a feat few can boast. He then looks Joey in the eye, and with a smile on his face, calls him a first-rate duelist with a first-rate deck, before almost regretfully calling for the destruction of Garuzzi's, and the end of the duel. When the life point counter hits 0 and the match is declared over, the two friends stare at each other, neither saying a word. Then, as one, they clasp hands, symbolizing their bond is as strong as ever. Leaning over to pat Seto on the back, Joey congratulates his bud, while in turn Seto praises Joey's growth, telling him that he meant every word he said, and promising they'll still find a way to save Serenity's sight together. The two then part ways, with Joey taking his place in the viewing gallery, while Yugi enters the duel box to face his brother, in a match that will determine which of them duels Pegasus to save their grandpa's soul, while anteing their own in the process. Yugi and Seto's eyes meet from across the table as they each shuffle their decks. Neither could have anticipated that of all the duelists on the island, it would come down to the two of them. But this is hardly the biggest matter on their minds, as both are aware of the risk the winner will have to take in facing Pegasus. Nonetheless, rather than shrink from the task, the two brothers have the same thought in that moment, that they must duel their very hardest, since it is the only way to ensure that whoever faces Pegasus is the best suited for the task. It is because of this thought that what Yugi does next comes as quite a shock to the Pharaoh, as he requests that the spirits stay out of this duel, allowing him to face his brother alone. At first, the Pharaoh assumes this is because of some lingering distrust, or also fear he might get overzealous and hurt Seto, though in a tone of conciliation, Yugi explains that actually he just feels that since it's his brother, this should be between the two of them, asking the Pharaoh to put his trust in him like he has agreed to with the ancient king. Nodding his understanding, the puzzle spirit allows his consciousness to retreat, thus giving Yugi full control for this duel, while above them, Pegasus chortles, calling it such delightful drama. The two beloved brothers who would go to any lengths for each other must now be locked in bitter conflict. Nonetheless, he expresses hope that they will both duel well, with this being their cue to begin. Taking the first move, Yugi decides to come out swinging, summoning his Meteor Dragon in attack mode, while Seto responds by playing Mammoth Graveyard in face-down defense and ending his turn there. Back with Yugi, he keeps up his aggressive stance, having Meteor Dragon destroy Mammoth Graveyard, while also bringing out Familiar Knight, since with what he knows of Seto and his deck from his many losses to him, he knows that he needs to get as many strong monsters out on the field as he can as quick as he can, if he wants to attain the win condition he has planned. Now it is Seto's turn again, and he summons Feral Imp in attack mode, with All Green Sprite wasting no time leaping onto Familiar Knight's chest and beheading it with a single slash of its razor claws. While this is a blow to Yugi, costing him 100 life points, it is an acceptable loss, as it lets him immediately replace Familiar Knight with his Blackland Fire Dragon, courtesy of the Knight's effect. The only real drawback is that Seto is also allowed to summon a 4-star monster from his hand, with him choosing Celtic Guardian, putting them at 2 monsters each. Nonetheless, Yugi's monsters are still stronger than Seto's, so this should not be a long-standing problem, or at least that is what Yugi thinks, until his brother plays a spell card before ending his turn, Swords of Revealing Light. Suddenly, Yugi finds himself paralyzed for 3 whole turns, more than enough time for Seto to plan a counterattack. While up above, Taya, Tristan, Mokuba, and Bakura comment on how it's funny Seto brought out a swordsman, while Yugi went with a dragon. It's kinda like the two brothers chose each other's style of monster rather than their own. Joey, who is the most experienced duelist, agrees that come to think of it, Yugi's aggressive dueling style in this match actually kinda reminds him of how Seto can get when he's in the zone, while Seto's been playing it safe, like how Yugi does sometimes when he's unwilling to lose. Looking puzzled, Tristan asks what Joey's getting at here, though it is Taya who answers, saying it's obvious, isn't it? Seto and Yugi have been through so much together that it's only natural they've rubbed off on each other, which honestly makes this whole duel all the more sick and twisted, since two brothers who love each other shouldn't be forced to fight. On this point, no one disagrees with her, and so silence falls on the balcony, as down below, Yugi begins his turn. Though in truth, it isn't much of a turn, as all he can do is lay a trap card face down and end it, while Seto does even less, passing entirely. Returning to Yugi, he draws Command Knight, and so plays it immediately, wanting to keep building up his forces, even if its attack boosting effect doesn't work on the 2 dragons he has on the field. He then ends his turn, allowing Seto to summon his Giant Soldier of Stone, doing so in face-up defense mode, as something of a deterrent, though unfortunately for the brunette, his brother is not deterred at all, drawing and summoning Joker's Knight next. Thanks to Command Knight's presence, Joker's Knight is granted an extra 400 attack points, giving enough power to destroy Seto's Giant Soldier of Stone, something he promises to do as soon as the swords are gone next turn. Smiling with a hint of cockiness, Seto replies that Yugi will have his chance, though not before he takes the Knight out for a spin. He then plays Brain Control, temporarily possessing Joker's Knight, and having it destroy Command Knight to both drop Yugi's life points to 1400 and take away Joker's ability to destroy his giant soldier. He then switches Feral Imp and Celtic Guardian to defense mode, thus ending his turn, and with it ending the sword's ability to halt Yugi's attacks. Capitalizing on this fact, Yugi has his two dragons decimate Seto's Feral Imp and Celtic Guardian, though since they're both in defense mode, he doesn't lose any life points. The same cannot be said of Yugi the following turn, however, as when Seto draws Gaia the Fierce Knight, he fuses it with his Curse of Dragon to summon Gaia the Dragon Champion. It then goes on to prove the truth of its name by destroying Joker's Knight, which along with demonstrating its supremacy over its fellow knight, also costs Yugi 200 more life points, bringing him down to 1200. Nonetheless, the boy with the tri-toned hair does not seem overly worried, as when his turn rolls around, he plays Gift of the Martyr, allowing Meteor Dragon to absorb the power of Blackland Fire Dragon, temporarily giving it 3300 attack, with that being more than enough to destroy Gaia and drop Seto to 1300, thus closing the gap between them significantly. However, knowing that to lose here would mean Yugi will have to ante his soul against Pegasus, Seto refuses to give up control of this duel for even a moment, with fate rewarding his devotion to his brother by bestowing him with his favorite card, the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Summoning Blue Eyes with a cry, Seto commands it to attack Meteor Dragon at once, since with Gift of the Martyr having worn off, this damage will be enough to wipe out the remainder of Yugi's life points. Flying into the air, the miniature Blue Eyes then unleashes its white lightning. While meeting Yugi's eyes, Seto thanks him for an incredible duel. However, here Yugi shakes his head, saying the duel's not over yet, as he activates his trap for when the sword's revealing light rune effect, Negate Attack. This creates a barrier around Meteor Dragon, shielding it from Seto's Blue Eyes, though it seems Yugi isn't done, as with a smile, he informs Seto that he really should be the one thanking him, as he's been trying to get him to summon his Blue Eyes all game. Looking stunned, Seto asks why Yugi would want him to have his strongest monster, to which the spiky-haired boy answers that he always knew in order to win he'd have to beat the dragon, so he's been building a strategy to topple it, which he can now put into play. Good to his word, Yugi then summons Silent Magician level 4 and calls for it to ready its attack despite the fact that it has 2000 fewer attack points than Blue Eyes, meaning if it hits, Yugi will have eliminated himself from the tournament. However, as Seto knew his brother would, Yugi has more to his plan than just this. Playing next the spell card Silent Burning, as he reveals the key part of his strategy was to make Seto shrink his hand as much as possible, since this play will only work if he has one card or less. Thankfully, he has one exactly, meaning that by the effect of Silent Burning, Seto must draw 5 more cards, with Silent Magician gaining 2500 more attack points and being able to transform into the powerful Silent Magician level 8. On these words, Seto and everyone watching witnesses as Silent Magician undergoes a metamorphosis, growing from a small child into a majestic woman. Then, with a flourish of her wand, she blows Blue Eyes away, reducing Seto to 800 life points and bringing in to one of the strongest monsters in the game. Yugi then asks what his big bro thought of this play, with Seto praising it as well thought out and quite clever since he had no idea he was being led into a trap, though there's one problem with it. By forcing him to draw so many cards, Yugi gave him many chances to draw exactly what he needed to make a comeback. Looking a little disconcerted, Yugi asks what Seto means, since Blue Eyes is his strongest monster, to which the brunette answers that in terms of attack points, that is true, though Grandpa's deck contains one monster even greater, questioning if Yugi remembers what it is. In a tone of stunned disbelief, Yugi asks if it's really possible that his brother's drawn Exodia, since no one's ever been able to call him, though with a shake of his head, Seto replies that Silent Burning only gave him 4 of the pieces. Now it's his draw, and what will likely be the last draw of the duel, as if he can't draw Exodia, Silent Magician will probably take him out this turn, but if he can, he wins. Either way, it's up to the heart of the cards now, just like it should be. Fingers shaking a little, Seto then lays his hands on top of his deck, and as warmth runs up his right arm, he draws, to find the right arm of the Forbidden One, just as he needed. Smiling confidently now, Seto states that he really did mean it when he called this an incredible duel. Then, as he lays out the 5 pieces of the Forbidden One, Exodia bursts onto the field, and obliterates Silent Magician. And just like that, the duel is at an end, with Seto being the one who will now advance to duel Pegasus for the title of King of Games, as well as Grandpa's soul. Walking around to stand beside his brother, Yugi congratulates Seto on his win, though also warns him to be safe, remembering the duel he had with Pegasus via videotape. Nodding solemnly, Seto promises that he won't let that pompous slime win. Then, as he tilts his head upwards, he locks eyes with Pegasus. Like always, the duel monster's creator exudes an aura of smug superiority, though beneath the surface, he is troubled. Due to little Yugi being the one who lost against his brother rather than the puzzle spirit, defeating Seto Boy won't give him the claim to the Millennium Puzzle that he had wanted. Not only that, but he also worries that the puzzle has given the Moto brothers some magical protection, since he was unable to steal Mokuba's soul during the videotape duel, meaning Seto might also be immune to his underhanded tricks. However, this second fear at least is unfounded, as when Pegasus steps into the duel box for the final match, his Millennium Eye is able to show him the young man's hand and strategy as clearly as it ever did. From this brief glance into Seto's mind, Pegasus sees that he doesn't want to drag this match out if he can help it, and that he intends to win the same way he did against his brother, with Exodia. To this end, when he doesn't get any pieces in his first hand, he plays the spell Monster Recovery, allowing him to reshuffle his hand into his deck and draw 5 fresh cards. Unfortunately, this only yields a single leg of the Forbidden One, with Pegasus coyly accusing him of being scared, since he remembers the defeat he handed him at the Intercontinental Championship, and knows that this time, the stakes are much higher. Refusing to rise to this bait, Seto instead lays some of his own, playing Sangan in face-down defense mode, and ending his turn. But this merely makes Pegasus tut, as he asks if Seto Boy takes him for a fool. Destroying that Sangan would be just what the boy wants, as it would let him get another Exodia piece, though he supposes it can't be helped, but if he's going to do it, he'll do it his way. He then plays his first card, the Elemental Hero Sparkman in attack mode, before equipping it with his Spark Blaster spell card, which he uses to force Sangan into attack mode, thus allowing him to inflict 600 points of damage when the orange gremlin is destroyed a moment later. By now, Yugi has joined his friends on the viewing platform, and as he peers down at the field, Joey asks if he's ever heard of these elemental Hoozits, since he sure as heck hasn't. Sighing, Yugi confirms that he has, though only through hearsay, since the rumor is that there are a new type of monster Industrial Illusions is in the process of creating, though due to their powerful abilities, they haven't been released to the public yet. Frowning deeply, Mokuba calls this completely unfair, since Seto shouldn't be forced to play against special cards that no one but Pegasus has access to, though with another sigh, Yugi replies that while he agrees with his brother, it's hardly surprising that Pegasus isn't fighting fair. Back with Seto, it is finally his turn, and knowing nothing in his hand can beat that Sparkman, he simply plays his Mystical Elf in face-down defense mode, before ending his turn with a scowl. Chuckling foppishly, Pegasus tells Seto Boy not to look so mad, since the whole reason he chose to use this deck instead of one of his many others is because Seto reminded him of a hero when they first met, thanks to that pure heart of his. If anything, he should take this deck choice as a compliment. Still scowling, Seto sarcastically quips that he's flattered, to which Pegasus corrects that flattened might be more accurate, as he reveals that his Spark Blast can be activated more than once, with Sparkman then using it to switch Mystical Elf into attack mode, before shocking her into the graveyard for 800 more damage. This leaves Seto with only 600 life points, while Pegasus is still in his full 2000, though it seems the card magnate is not done yet, as with a flourish, he lays one face-down card, then ends his turn. Recognizing that playing cautious isn't getting him anywhere, Seto decides to switch up his strategy, summoning his Horn Imp and using an equipped spell of his own to give it a 700 attack point boost via Horn of the Unicorn. This at last gives the brunette a monster strong enough to tangle with that Sparkman, and so wasting no time, he has his Imp impale the hero on its horn, destroying it and dealing Pegasus 400 points of damage. After his rocky start, this small victory gives Seto a modicum of his confidence back, though it's shattered a moment later when Pegasus reveals that he knew Seto would do that, and so had a spell waiting for this very moment. He then flips the warrior returning alive face up, causing Sparkman to reappear on the field, and effectively nullifying Seto's last move. Trying not to let this bother him, Seto calls Pegasus a fool, as he will just destroy it again next turn for the same amount of life point damage, though here the Industrial Illusions CEO disagrees, starting his turn off by playing the field spell Fusion Gate. He then condescendingly explains that field spells work similarly to field power bonuses, though this one is rather special, as instead of boosting attack and defense, it allows fusion without a polymerization spell. Case in point, he can now fuse his Elemental Hero Sparkman with the Elemental Hero Clayman in his hand to create Elemental Hero Thunder Giant. At once, Sparkman disappears into a swirling void, with a yellow-clad behemoth taking its place. Though this is not the worst of it, as when Thunder Giant appears, a bolt of lightning descends from the heavens to destroy Horn Imp. Smirking, Pegasus then explains that this is Thunder Giant's special ability. It can destroy anything weaker than it when summoned, while also adding the barb that he's sure Seto Boy must be at least a little impressed, as he knows how strongly the young man believes in the power of friendship and becoming stronger through one's bonds, something his fusion deck excels at. Seto does not dignify this taunting with a response, instead moving right into his turn. Due to Duelist Kingdom rules, that Thunder Giant was unable to attack him directly, though unless he draws something strong now, he has no doubt that Pegasus will find a way to use that big bruiser to decimate his life points. Thankfully, it seems the heart of the cards are listening, as when Seto draws, he sees the Dark Magician, and so plays it in attack mode, with one Dark Magic attack being all it takes to cut Thunder Giant down to size, while also dropping Pegasus to 1500 life points. From the look on the silver-haired man's face, Seto can see that he is as shocked by this outcome as Seto himself is, with the youth realizing that since he drew the card and played it straight away, there was no way for Pegasus to plan for it, even by reading his mind. This might be just the strategy he needs to win, so long as the heart of the cards can keep providing for him. However, there is still the matter of how to keep his monster on the field safe. Thankfully, he has a plan here too, as he activates magical hats to shield Dark Magician, while also storing a spellbinding circle under one of them. Unable to resist returning the favor for the bevy of taunts Pegasus has been hurling his way, Seto informs his opponent of exactly what he's doing, while adding that he doesn't know which hat contains what, so even if the creep looks into his mind, he'll find nothing useful. To his dismay, when Pegasus attempts to call this bluff, he finds it to be true, with Seto being as blind as him, a fact which only adds to the silver-haired man's aggravation, while his ears are assailed by the adolescent caterwauling of Seto Boy's insipid friends, as they cheer him on and declare that he, Pegasus, can't cheat anymore. Having had quite enough of this, Pegasus informs his young opponent that it's time they bring this duel to the next level, while all around him, dark shadows swirl and coalesce, until finally an orb of darkness has obscured the duel box, cutting Seto off from his friends, and marking the start of their shadow game. Pegasus then begins his turn by playing a face-down spell or trap, along with Vision Hero Witch Raider, while stating that though he is very proud of all the hero cards he has helped create, he feels the Vision Heroes suit him best. Wouldn't Seto Boy agree? On the word Vision, Pegasus' Millennium Eye flashes ominously. Though paying this no heed, Seto retorts that Pegasus isn't any kind of hero. Cackling at this spunk in spite of his predicament, the Industrial Illusions CEO jeers that he's afraid harsh words won't protect him from what's coming, as he instructs Vision Hero Witch Raider to use her special ability. At once, the so-called hero opens fire on all four of Seto's magical hats, with them each being destroyed along with Spellbinding Circle, leaving Dark Magician exposed and vulnerable. Then to cap it off, the battle phase begins, with Witch Raider rushing in and blasting Dark Magician at point-blank range, dropping Seto to 400 life points and destroying one of the only cards in his deck that could possibly stand a chance against those terrifying hero monsters. Now that it is his turn again, Seto summons his Curse of Dragon in defense mode, figuring it might at least be able to keep him in the duel, though as he does, he feels a wave of fatigue wash over him, with Pegasus taunting the Shadow Realm tends to take a toll on those not blessed with a Millennium item, and he can assure him that as this duel goes on, it's only going to get worse for Seto Boy. Wanting to test the limits of his young opponent's endurance, Pegasus decides to hold off on summoning anything new this turn, instead simply destroying Curse of Dragon, and allowing Seto Boy to throw out some new paltry defense monster, who Vision Hero Witch Raider can make short work of just as easily. This becomes the way of things over the next few rounds, with Seto finding it harder and harder to stay upright in his chair with each passing turn. Seeing Seto flagging, Pegasus coos that he can make this all go away if the boy wants. All he has to do is surrender. Sure, he'll lose his soul, but from the way things are going, it seems more likely it's going to be devoured by the Shadow Realm. Better to face oblivion safe inside a card, rather than here alone in the dark. However, it seems this was just the wrong thing to say, as from the gloom, a voice Pegasus knows well rings out, that of Yugi Boy, as he declares that his brother is never alone. A moment later, the brat Mokuba adds his voice to this, with Joey Wheeler and the others soon following. Together, they create a most irksome cacophony, though in contrast to Pegasus' reaction, the sound of these voices seems to give Seto strength, with him straightening in his seat, while on his forehead, the Millennium symbol glows. Curse that Yugi Moto. He must have wished upon his puzzle to keep his brothers together. That can be the only explanation, though it doesn't matter now, since even if the Shadow Realm cannot dispatch this young upstart for him, beating him in a duel will be more than enough to bypass the puzzle's protection. However, for now it is Seto's turn, and feeling his head clearing, he informs Pegasus that while he may not have a Millennium item to give him strength, he has been blessed in other regards, having been gifted the support of his brothers and friends, though this is not the only gift he has received, as he was also given his grandpa's deck, the man Pegasus kidnapped, and whose deck he will now use to defeat him and end his reign of terror. He then draws, and without even looking, knows he has gotten just the card he needs, crying for Blue Eyes to help him out as he summons it onto the field. At once, the blue dragon appears, though rather than manifesting as a miniature model on the table, a life-sized beast takes form behind Seto, a menacing glare on its face as it stares at Pegasus. The young brunette then commands it to attack Vision Hero Witch Raider, though to his shock and horror, Pegasus activates a trap just as the white lightning launches. In the chaos of the moment and the smoke cloud that follows, Seto cannot see what card Pegasus used, though when his vision is at last restored, he is dismayed to see Witch Raider still on the field. Cackling malevolently at the look on Seto's face of this failure, Pegasus reveals his trap to be Invincible Hero, a card which allows him to make his hero monsters immortal for one turn, even if he does still take battle damage. Checking the life point gauge, Seto sees that this is true, with Pegasus having 1200 life points, which is still 3 times more than his 400, though between the voices of his friends and Blue Eyes by his side, he feels far more hopeful than he did a moment ago. Seeing this hope, Pegasus decides to take a peek into his opponent's mind, on the off chance he has some strategy to beat him, though from what he can see, it is simple childish optimism. him, as while the Blue Eyes White Dragon is strong, it is not unstoppable, and with a pitiful hand of 2 measly Exodia pieces, the spell card Multiply and Silverfang, Pegasus knows he has nothing to fear. In fact, now would be a better time than any to begin his endgame strategy, as Seto Boy's devastation will be all the more severe, coming off the high of his small victory. To this end, he once more activates his Fusion Gate, fusing his Vision Hero Ferris and Vision Hero Increase from his hand to summon Vision Hero Adoration, a striking figure all in black who is truly worthy of calling himself a hero. Pegasus then activates Adoration's effect, declaring that it will allow him to reduce the attack of one monster in Seto's field by the attack points of one of his Vision Heroes, with him choosing Blue Eyes and Witch Raider, so that the once mighty dragon is reduced to 300 attack points. In such a weakened state, one attack from Adoration will spell the end for Seto Boy. However, having a flash of inspiration, Seto tells the Duel Monsters creator not to count him out just yet, as he activates his own spell, Multiply, using it to split his Blue Eyes into 3, now that it has less than 500 attack points. Testily, Pegasus asks what his point is, since 3 weak dragons are as useless as 1, though here Seto replies they won't be weak for long, and it's all thanks to Pegasus. Definitely irked now, the silver-haired man asks what he means, to which Seto replies that like field power bonuses, this field spell seems to affect any part of the field it touches, and from the looks of things, the Fusion Gate is on his side too, meaning he can combine his dragons to create the one and only Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. This horrifies Pegasus, who is forced to call off his attack as the 3-headed dragon is formed, though from his side of the field, Seto grins that he's always dreamed of summoning this monster, since it's the power of 3 coming together to form something special, just like him and his brothers. He then commands Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to attack with Neutron Blast, and as the 3 streams of power consume Vision Hero Adoration, Pegasus' life points fall to 0. Letting out a bellow of anguish, Pegasus falls from his chair, while all around him, the shadows fade, allowing Yugi and the others who had been standing outside the barrier to rush in. When they see the situation before them, Joey asks if this means Seto really won, to which Mokuba cheers that of course his big bro did, while Taya smiles that she's glad Seto's safe. As for Pegasus, he has begun hobbling away in a state of disarray, though when Seto and Tristan attempt to go after him, they are stopped by Chemo and another palace guard, who instruct them to return to the balcony, as Master Pegasus will keep his word and dispense prizes, just as soon as he is recovered from his strenuous duel. Unfortunately for the card magnate, recover is the last thing he will be doing, as when he enters his private chambers, he sees that he is not alone. Standing in the corner is none other than Yami Bakura. In a weak voice, Pegasus pleads for the man to leave him be, though this is not on the cards so to speak, as with abundant malice, Bakura springs upon the weakened man and claims his eye, bringing him one step closer to his grander goal. Meanwhile, back on the viewing platform, Seto is approached by Croquet, who declares him the winner of the Duelist Kingdom tournament, granting him the title King of Games, as well as informing the Murdo brothers that their grandfather's soul has been restored to his body just as Master Pegasus promised. Then to cap it all off, Seto is presented with the $3 million prize money check, though without hesitation, he hands it to Joey, telling him to save Serenity's eyesight. In a low voice, Tristan asks if the brunette is sure about this, since 3 mil could set him up for life, but with a smile, Seto replies there are more important things than money, while at his side, Joey begins to bawl with gratitude, vowing to never forget what his best bud's done for him. After this, it is only a short boat ride back to Domino City, with the gang's first port of call being the hospital. As Croquet had said, Solomon is up and about when they arrive, though this is rather short-lived, as a moment later he falls back onto his bed, having been bowled over by the weight of Yugi and Mokuba as they rush in to hug him. As for Seto, he stands in the doorway somewhat awkwardly, and as his grandpa's eyes fall upon him, he apologizes for not being able to protect him from Pegasus' shadow magic. With a laugh, Solomon calls this nonsense, saying he doesn't blame any of them for what happened, and if anything, he's grateful that Seto saved him. It is only when the old man says that he does not blame Seto for his capture that the brown-haired youth finally relaxes for the first time since the incident, strolling over and joining his brothers in the embrace. Following some paperwork to make sure that Solomon is able to go home, the gang with Grandpa in tow head for the game shop, though when they arrive, they find a young girl waiting for them with a scowl on her face. In a petulant tone, she demands that Grandpa hand over his Blue Eyes White Dragon, while also calling him a thief, an act which causes Seto to bristle, as he tells this brat to get lost, since there's no way he's giving his Blue Eyes to some snot-nosed punk. Flaring up as well, the girl, who introduces herself as Rebecca Hawkins, demands that Seto duel her for it then, and feeling rather confident after having just beaten the Duel Monster's creator, he accepts. From here, the duel goes much like in canon, with Seto and Rebecca inadvertently replaying the same duel their grandfathers did years ago. Similarly, upon learning that Rebecca's claims are legitimate thanks to the arrival of Arthur Hawkins, Seto surrenders and offers the girl the card, though with a smile she tells him he can keep it, as a mark of their friendship, just like it is for their grandpas. Following this would normally be the legendary Heroes arc, the due to Seto not being Kaiba Corp's CEO, and Kaiba Corp not even being in the field of game development, this is entirely skipped. Likewise, the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc is averted, but this time not because of an absence, but rather a presence, that being Seto's, as he joins his voice to Yugi's in trying to dissuade Joey from dueling Duke Devlin after he humiliates him with his dice trick. Heeding the advice of his two best friends, Joey agrees to cool his jets, storming off and preventing Duke from getting his revenge, at least for now. And so it is that for a few weeks, life returns to normal, with the only thing the gang has to worry about being school. However, this mundanity is shattered one night when Solomon enters Yugi and Seto's room to inform them they have a guest. Heading down into the game shop, they find a woman with long dark hair waiting for them, though this is hardly her most striking feature, as around her throat hangs a necklace bearing the Millennium symbol. Instantly growing suspicious, Seto growls at her to state her business, though in a perfectly placid tone, the woman introduces herself as a Shizu Ishtar, before stating she is here to give them both a grave warning. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.